Chapter 562. If it was someone else who said this, Mo Chenga would definitely scoff at it. In the past, when Jing Xingji was ostracized in Gujin sect, why didn't he come out to uphold justice? Now that Jing Xingji had formed his nascent soul, he was called back to Gujin sect. However, this person was Honorable Swordsman Yuanying, so this situation was not valid. Apart from Empress Yuan's cultivation level, Venerable Swordsman Yuanying was also famous in the Celestial Pole for his sword maniac and his righteousness. He was crazy about swords and collected flying swords and comprehended swordsmanship for fun. Other than that, he had no mood to deal with miscellaneous matters. Because of this, Gujin sect also established the title of Deacon Great Elder in addition to the Head Great Elder, and the previous Deacon Great Elder was Sword Venerable Fulling. Honorable Swordsman Yuanying had never interfered in the affairs of the sect, but he had always been righteous all his life. As long as he knew something, he would never be biased. Therefore, Mo Chenga was willing to believe that Venerable Swordsman Yuanying definitely didn't know about Jing Xingji being ostracized in the group. It had to be known that it had only been 100 years since Swordsman Zhongguang's death and Jing Xingji's departure from the sect. To Swordsman Yuanying, this was merely the time it took for her to enter seclusion. Because of this, after Sword Venerable Fulling died, Sword Venerable Yuanying had to come out to manage the sect's affairs. Faced with Venerable Swordsman Yuanying's invitation, Jing Xingji was first overwhelmed by the favor, but then he became hesitant. Venerated Swordsman Yuanying was a godlike existence among the ancient sword sect disciples. Every ancient sword sect disciple viewed Venerated Swordsman Yuanying as their idol, and Jing Xingji was no exception. If it was in the past, it would be an unparalleled honor for an ancient sect's disciple to receive a word from Venerable Swordsman Yuanying. However, Jing Xingji didn't answer for a long time as he recalled what happened to him in Gujin sect. Honorable Swordsman Yuanying looked at him calmly. There was no coercion or temptation. He was just patiently waiting for his answer. Jing Xingji gritted his teeth and finally said, "Senior Yuanying is too kind. I'm used to living a free and unfettered life. I don't want to be bound by the sect anymore." He addressed Venerable Swordsman Yuanying as a senior instead of the martial uncle of the past. Hearing this answer, Honorable Swordsman Yuanying finally looked disappointed. It was difficult for sword cultivators to make a realm breakthrough. Gujin sect didn't have fewer disciples than Shenqing school, but there were far fewer nascent soul cultivators. After Venerable Swordsman Fulling passed away, apart from Venerable Swordsman Yuanying, there was only Venerable Swordsman Xiaohe in the early stage of the nascent soul realm. Although another disciple advanced to the nascent soul realm in the past 100 years, two mediocre cultivators in the early Yuanying stage weren't enough to support Gujin sect, the third sect in the celestial pole. As for Venerable Swordsman Yuanying, he looked young, but in fact he was a cultivator from the same generation as Lord Daoist Jinghe. If they wanted to maintain Gujin sect's prosperity, they had to nurture a cultivator capable of inheriting Venerable Swordsman Yuanying's position within 500 to 600 years. As for the two nascent soul cultivators of Gujin sect, whether it was in terms of comprehension or age, they weren't good enough to shoulder such a heavy responsibility. For this reason, Venerated Swordswoman Yuanying had no choice but to look for disciples with superior aptitude and temperament among the core formation cultivators. She planned to accept them as her direct disciples and pass on her mantle. In terms of aptitude and comprehension, Jing Xingji was top-notch among the new generation of disciples. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been accepted as a disciple by Venerated Swordsman Yuanying as soon as he entered the sect. He was one of the cultivators Venerated Swordsman Yuanying thought had a high chance of advancing to the nascent soul realm. Unexpectedly, when she looked for him, she found out that Jing Xingji was missing. Later, she learned about the unfair treatment Jing Xingji received in the sect in the past 100 years. However, it was all too late. Jing Xingji killed Venerable Swordsman Fulling's disciple and didn't plan to come back. On this trip to the far west, she unexpectedly saw Jing Xingji, and sure enough, he formed his nascent soul. She naturally wanted to call Jing Xingji back to Gujin sect. Unfortunately, Jing Xingji's experiences in the past 100 years made her lose her sense of belonging to the sect, and she didn't want to go back. With a sigh, Venerated Swordsman Yuanying said, "Fulling bullied and humiliated you like that, so I don't blame you for not wanting to go back to the sect." Jing Xingji wanted to say something but hesitated. His experiences in Gujin sect had nothing to do with Venerated Swordsman Yuanying. He really wanted to say a few words, but he was afraid that Venerated Swordsman Yuanying would misunderstand, so he could only keep his mouth shut. "Forget it." Venerated Swordsman Yuanying regained his composure and said to Jing Xingji, "As the head Grand Supreme Elder of Gujin sect, I have the responsibility to protect my disciples. I'm also responsible for the injustice you encountered. Since you don't want to go back to Gujian's sect, I'll give you a fated chance to compensate for your 100 years of grievance. Jing Xingji was stunned and stared blankly at venerated swordsman Yuanying. He didn't expect that venerated swordsman Yuanying not only didn't blame him for his unwillingness to go back to Gujian's sect, but also wanted to compensate him. He lowered his head and felt that the unfair experiences in the past 100 years were nothing to him. Those cold eyes, those rumors. At least now, the person he respected the most in Gujian's sect knew about the injustice he had suffered. Venerated swordsman Yuanying opened his hand, and a small flying sword appeared in his palm. He said, "This flying sword is a keepsake of a senior in my sect. This senior's divine power is amazing, and his comprehension of the sword far surpasses ours. I once promised him one thing, and in return he's willing to pass on his lifetime comprehension to the person who holds the keepsake. You just need to follow the clues to find him." With a raise of his hand, the small flying sword gently flew in front of Jing Xingji. At the same time, venerated swordsman Yuanying secretly transmitted his voice to Jing Xingji, giving him the clues. After doing all this, venerated swordsman Yuanying said, "I'm going back to Gujian's sect. If you want to come back one day, Gujian sect's gate will always be open for you." Once he finished speaking, he didn't wait for Jing Xingji to express his gratitude. With a flick of his sleeve, he stepped onto the flying sword and turned into a sword light, disappearing into the sky. Holding the small flying sword, Jing Xingji stared blankly at the place where venerated swordsman Yuanying disappeared, remaining silent for a long time. Hey. Old man Yuanying is still as good at buying people's hearts as before. Lord Daoist Jinghe's voice broke the silence. He cast a sidelong glance at Jing Xingji. "Brat, if you want to go back, no one's stopping you." Jing Xingji's hot blood was splashed clean. He said somewhat angrily out of shame, "Senior Jinghe, didn't you just urge me to go back to the sect?" Lord Daoist Jinghe waved his hand and said, "I just can't stand old man Yuanying putting on an act." "Senior." Jing Xingji protested. She dared to bet that Lord Daoist Jinghe was in a bad mood because Jing Xingji stole his limelight. Who told venerated swordsman Yuanying to make Jing Xingji commit suicide with just a few words? Sure enough, when she turned around, Qin also smiled without saying anything. With a flash of light, the small flying sword in Jing Xingji's hand was put into his Qingkuan ring. He was thinking that after this matter was over, he would go look for fated chances. Since venerated swordsman Yuanying said fated chances, it must be a great fated chance. Jing Xingji never doubted that fated chances were fake. If it were someone else, Jing Xingji would have doubted their motives, but this person was venerated swordsman Yuanying. His character could be testified by anyone. After a while, the flight lights crisscrossed. These nascent soul cultivators, either in groups or alone, left Fengsha City. Lord Daoist Jinghe said, "Bian and Ding Wan will stay behind to clean up the situation. When we report to the Immortal Alliance, they'll send a group of cultivators to guard this place. You found a lot of materials for the Immortal Alliance, so you must be rewarded." The latter part of his sentence was directed at Mo Tiange and Qin Shi. This task was originally Huaziki and Zhong Xi's responsibility, but unexpectedly the two of them died. Instead, Mo Tiange and Qin Shi, who happened to come to the far west, completed the task. For the Immortal Alliance fighting on both sides, this secret storehouse was just the right time. After the Immortal Alliance was established, it naturally had to mobilize resources and build a storehouse to supply the materials needed for the war. Each cultivation group couldn't always be responsible for it themselves. Any organization without financial power could easily become an empty shell. However, the members of the Immortal Alliance were the most complicated in the history of the Celestial Pole. Whether they were big cultivation groups or small individual cultivators, all the cultivators in the Celestial Pole were under the jurisdiction of the Immortal Alliance. As a result, how to build this storehouse, where to mobilize resources, and how much each cultivation group had to contribute became thorny issues. Because of this matter, the elders in Kuanzhong City quarreled countless times. At this time, the treasure map in the far west, which they originally didn't have high hopes for, unexpectedly found the secret storehouse of a big ancient cultivation group, and the problem was solved. This secret storehouse was too big. If they had to divide it, who should divide it, who should divide it, who should divide it, who should divide it, these were all problems. If they didn't handle it well, there would be conflicts within the Immortal Alliance. It would be better to directly fill it into the Immortal Alliance's storehouse. This way, each force wouldn't have to rack their brains to shirk responsibility, and they wouldn't have to quarrel over the distribution of resources. The most important thing was that this secret storehouse was more valuable than any cultivation group's storehouse. In this way, the position of the Immortal Alliance would be firmly stabilized. Of course, there must be follow-up ways to make money, but this was a matter for the future. Emo Chenga said, "What reward? A spirit-controlling magic weapon? In your dreams." Lord Daoist Jinghe glared at her, then said carelessly, "It's probably just picking a few things from the storehouse." He had already seen this storehouse. There weren't any amazing magic weapons, but most of them were materials. Although it was rare, it wasn't enough to make him envious. "In that case, Master will take it on your behalf." Lord Daoist Jinghe glanced at her and asked, "You don't plan to go to the Immortal Alliance?" "Master, I haven't completed my goal yet. I don't have much time." "All right." Lord Daoist Jinghe thought for a while, then said, "Master will take care of this matter for you. However, now that the Immortal Alliance has been established, we need a lot of manpower to fight on two fronts. Our Shenqing school has 8 nascent soul cultivators, so it's not a big deal to lose 2 of you. However, we can't always let other people take care of this matter. When this matter is over, you have to replace them." "Yes," Emo Chenga and Qin Shi answered. Qin Shi didn't mind, but Emo Chenga knew that aside from taking care of the chores in Clear Spring Peak, she almost never contributed to the school. If it was during normal times, she could naturally enjoy the school's offerings, but now was a troubled time. It wouldn't be right if she didn't contribute to the school. If there's no result in the end, you don't have to be afraid. Lord Daoist Jinghe looked at Emo Chenga and said, "Yuanying, Bayan, and those other old guys all have some friendship with me. When the time comes, we, the late nascent soul cultivators, gather together. I don't believe we can't solve your problem." Emo Chenga was touched. Ever since she worshipped her master, he did too many things for her, but she did very little for him. If there was a need in the future, she would definitely go through water and tread on fire for her master. "All right." Lord Daoist Jinghe waved his hand, turning the pavilion back into a cloud carriage. "Master's going back to Kunwo. If there's nothing else, come back early." Without waiting for their answer, he waved his hand and disappeared into the horizon on the cloud carriage. When Lord Daoist Jinghe's figure disappeared, there were no other nascent soul cultivators around. The 4 of them looked at each other. Emo Chenga took the initiative to speak. "What about you?" Nye Wushang said, "I'm going back to Yunzhong. These days, I've been thinking that my master probably has some means to know my position, so he came looking for me as soon as I returned to the Celestial Pole. Now that he's seriously injured, it's a good opportunity for me. I have to take advantage of this time to improve my cultivation level." "But don't you have a cultivation technique?" Emo Chenga asked. Nye Wushang smiled bitterly. "Unless my master is willing to pass me a cultivation technique, where else can I get one? Fortunately, I'm already in the nascent soul realm. At worst, I can just slowly explore and create my own cultivation technique. Even so, how could it be easy to create one's own cultivation technique? That won't be necessary." Qin Shi took out a Chengkuan bag and handed it to her. "As I expected, this thing is related to your cultivation technique." Nye Wushang took it, touched the Chengkuan bag, and was stunned to find it was a stone tablet. Emo Chenga knew what he took out must be Mei Feng's primordial devil stone tablet, so she said, "This is a devil cultivator's item. It's useless to us, so you should keep it." Nye Wushang nodded and smiled. Okay. She wouldn't thank him with words, so she would repay him if she had the chance in the future. "What about you?" Emo Chenga turned to Jing Xingji. Jing Xingji said, "In any case, I have nothing to do. I'll go look for the fated chance Martial Uncle Yuanying gave me." Emo Chenga curled her lips. "This guy, he's only willing to call me Martial Uncle now that venerable swordsman Yuanying isn't here. Do you have something important to do?" Jing Xingji looked at the 2 of them. When Lord Daoist Jinghe said he wanted to gather late-stage nascent soul cultivators in the Celestial Pole, they knew Emo Chenga encountered a very serious problem. Qin Shi nodded and sighed. "Do you need our help?" Jing Xingji said matter-of-factly. Nye Wushang also didn't object. "This matter can't be solved with more people." Qin Shi shook his head. "You guys go. Okay, call me if you need anything." Jing Xingji took out a jade talisman, cut a sliver of his divine sense, put it inside and threw it to them. "I'm leaving." Without saying any nonsense, Jing Xingji flew away on his sword. Nye Wushang did the same thing and passed the 10,000-mile sound-transmitting talisman to them. "I'm also leaving. 100 years is still too short. We'll meet again someday," Emo Chenga said sincerely. Nye Wushang smiled and nodded. She also didn't say any nonsense and turned into a black flight light, flying far away. Chapter 563. After everyone left, Qin asked, "Do you have an idea?" Mo Chenga took out the soul bead Lord Daoist Jinghe threw at her and said with a smile, "I just thought of it." Qin stared at the gloomy soul bead in confusion. "What's the use of this?" Mo Chenga said, "All the traps and formations in the passageways outside the storehouse have been cracked. Logically speaking, Xiao Xilan's group must have come to the storehouse. However, there are no traces of them in the storeroom. There are only two possibilities. One is that they left the storeroom safely and went somewhere else. The other is that they disappeared in the storeroom." Qin pondered for a moment and immediately understood. "Ghost City." "You're right." Mo Chenga stared at the soul bead. From time to time, several evil ghost faces protruded from the surface of the bead. They looked terrifying, but they couldn't break free from the soul bead's shackles. There are dozens of ghost cultivators in the nascent soul realm, and Ghost City has been built here for at least 10,000 years. They definitely know where Xiao Xilan went. How many nascent soul stage ghost cultivators are we going to find? The others had left, but Dao Lord Speechless and Ding Wan were still in the sacrificial temple, waiting for the people from the Immortal Alliance to arrive. They could go and contact them now. Presumably, Dao Lord Speechless and Ding Wan would show them some respect. Mo Chenga shook her head. "There's no need to go through so much trouble. There are many souls in this soul bead. Perhaps they know." After saying that, she loosened her grip, and the soul bead floated in midair. "I'll extract the soul. You stand guard." Qin nodded. With a wave of his hand, the red sword light split into countless sword lights, turning into a curtain wall that surrounded him. At the same time he retreated slightly just in case. Originally, even nascent soul cultivators couldn't touch soul objects. However, Mo Chenga had a soul bead so she could borrow its power and use it a little. Mo Chenga made dazzling hand seals with both hands, then gathered her aura and focused her mind. A wisp of pure spiritual aura condensed on her fingertips and pointed at the soul bead. On the surface of the soul bead, the gray barrier of light was suddenly broken. Countless souls squeezed into this small crack, pushing against each other and squeezing out of shape. Finally, a soul popped its head out and squeezed out from the damaged area with great difficulty. Mo Chenga immediately waved her hand, drawing the other gray specks of light to this area and blocking the hole. The soul that was squeezed out was a middle-aged man with a sluggish and stiff face. Looking at his appearance, Mo Chenga felt he didn't seem to have any spiritual intelligence. Even so, she still asked, "Who are you? Tell me your name." The middle-aged man turned his head in a daze and did not answer. Mo Chenga asked again, "Who are you?" "State your name." The soul still did not answer. Could it be that it had already lost its intelligence? It was highly possible that this soul pearl could restrain souls, or perhaps it could even refine souls. After thinking for a while, she patiently asked again, "Who are you? Tell me your name." The soul kept turning its head and finally stopped. Am I out?" His voice was stiff with a hint of disbelief. It was good that it still had spiritual intelligence. Mo Chenga heaved a sigh of relief and said, "Yes, you've come out of the soul bead." "Ah." Although her voice was stiff, Mo Chenga could still hear the joy in his voice. She didn't know how long this person had been trapped in the soul pearl. Maybe he was trapped inside after he died? After a long time, the soul calmed down and bowed. "Senior, thank you for giving me a new life. With this, I can enter the cycle of reincarnation again." Mo Chenga said, "There's no hurry. I have something to ask you." "Yes, Senior." "Junior will tell you everything I know," the soul said respectfully. The soul said respectfully. After a while, he had finally adapted to his current state and was no longer as stiff as before. Mo Chenga was very satisfied with his attitude and asked, "From what you said, you were a cultivator? May I know your identity and where did you come from?" The soul said, "Yes, Junior is a cultivator from the Seven Mysteries sect. I used to be in the core formation realm. After I fell on Demonic Mountain, my obsession didn't disperse. Later, for some reason, I was sucked into this thing and was trapped until now." The Seven Mysteries sect? The two of them had strange expressions. They had heard of the Seven Mysteries sect, but it was a sect from tens of thousands of years ago and had long disappeared. The current seven great sects were passed down through tens of thousands of years of trials. There were also countless sects that used to be extremely prosperous but gradually declined until they disappeared. The Seven Mysteries sect was one of them. In the history of the Celestial Pole, the Seven Mysteries sect flourished 50,000 years ago and then gradually declined until its inheritance was severed 30,000 years ago. This soul was a cultivator from the Seven Mysteries sect, a cultivator from at least 30,000 years ago. Seniors, could it be that you and the Seven Mysteries sect? Chenga waved her hand and said, we don't have any disputes with the Seven Mysteries sect. It's just that the Seven Mysteries sect has disappeared. Disappeared? The voice suddenly rose. The soul was extremely surprised. How could it disappear? The Seven Mysteries sect is a famous cultivation group in the celestial pole with many nascent soul elders. Chenga said, since there's life there's death. The Seven Mysteries sect disappeared 30,000 years ago. 30,000 years. The soul murmured. So it has already been 30,000 years. He suddenly turned his head, looked towards the east and shouted, Master, disciple could not complete the task, I will never see you again. The stiff voice sounded a little sad. After a while, the soul calmed down and bowed. Senior, please ask. Chenga nodded and asked, what is this soul bead? The soul answered, to be honest, Junior also doesn't know what this bead is. Junior only knows that it was born in the Ghost City realm and will automatically absorb some souls. The Ghost City realm? It's the place where the Ghost City is connected to the outside world, the soul explained. Junior learned from other souls that many souls entered the Ghost City through this place, but for some reason they were all absorbed by this bead. That's how it came to be. Oh. Chenga's mind raced and she asked, then let me ask you. Several thousand years ago, was there a group of cultivators who came to the Ghost City realm? The soul was at a loss. Several thousand years ago. He had been in the soul bead for a long time. Seeing that he didn't know anything, Chenga said, it was a group of nascent soul cultivators. The soul said, I remember. I don't know how long ago there was a nascent soul cultivator who broke into the Ghost City and ran into the Ghost Gate. He was killed by more than 10 nascent soul ghost cultivators and his soul was also absorbed by this bead. The two of them were overjoyed. Chenga asked, what was the lineup of that group of cultivators? Was there a woman among them? The soul said, it seemed to be 5 people and there was indeed a female cultivator among them. What was her name? The soul shook his head. There are more than 10 million souls in this soul bead. Junior doesn't know. Chenga felt relieved. It didn't matter if she didn't know her name. If Xiao Xilan's soul was really in this bead, she could always find it. Thank you. Chenga glanced at Qin Shi. Qin Shi nodded and withdrew the sword light around him. You can go. The soul bowed and said, thank you, Senior. Then it disappeared with the wind. Since he was free from the soul bead, he could enter samsara again as long as he dispersed his obsession. If his obsession was still there, he could also become a ghost cultivator instead of being trapped inside, unable to live or die. The sword light surrounded him again. Chenga did the same thing and released another soul. This time her luck wasn't good. Maybe it was because she was trapped for too long, but this soul already lost its spiritual wisdom and became a wandering soul. Helpless, Chenga could only let it go. After doing this several times, she finally released another soul with spiritual wisdom. This soul didn't have any impression of this matter. The jade rabbit rose and the golden crow fell. Day and night changed. On the second day, another soul finally had an impression of this matter, confirming what the first soul said. Chenga felt a little relieved. Since this matter was true, she could definitely find Xiao Xilan after searching all the souls in the soul bead. It took a lot of time to try tens of thousands of souls one by one, but they had enough patience. First, cultivators like them had to meditate for a very long time each time. Once they entered closed-door meditation, they might even enter closed-door meditation for more than 100 years, so they'd long been very patient. Second, this matter was related to their lives. Now that hope was right in front of them, how could they not be patient? Questioning the souls, resting and questioning again. Several days passed and Chenga became more and more excited. As more and more souls confirmed this news, the souls in the soul bead became fewer and fewer, and the possibility of finding Xiao Xilan became higher and higher. When she released the soul that traveled with Xiao Xilan, she finally confirmed this matter. Chenga didn't continue immediately after letting this soul go with the wind. Instead, she put away the soul bead, picked up a stone and sat down. Upon seeing this, Qin Shi withdrew his sword light and sat next to her. What's wrong? Chenga's fingers trembled a little as she said, I hope I wasn't happy for nothing. Although she didn't start this matter until she reached the nascent soul realm, she often thought about this matter in the past 100 years. After all, there was a restriction in her mind just like there was a sword hanging over her head. Once the silk rope tied to the sword broke, her little life would be over. She had outstanding qualifications, many treasures in her hands, and a bright future ahead of her. How could she be willing to let her fate be controlled by others? Every time she thought about this matter, she wanted to tear Wanderer Ziwei's corpse into 1,000 pieces. Unfortunately, the corpse of the other party was long gone. The wisp of divine sense that was left behind was going to disappear sooner or later. That won't happen. She was much calmer. In the past few days, we can be sure Xiao Xilan is inside. Emo Chinga also knew the soul that traveled with Xiao Xilan had been found. As long as Xiao Xilan didn't lose her consciousness, she was inside. It was just that this matter was too important, so she was a bit worried. After resting for a while, the two of them stood up again and began to extract the soul. Emo Chinga tore open the surface of the soul bead and muttered in her heart, "Senior Xiao Xilan, you mustn't lose your consciousness. The person who shared your pillow with you as deep as the sea is actually the enemy who destroyed your family. You can't take revenge and you can't stay with your lover. With such an obsession you won't lose your consciousness and become a wandering soul, right?" As she thought about this, another soul broke free from the soul bead and appeared in front of her. It was a young and beautiful woman wearing a plain white dress. Although it was only a soul, her spiritual aura was still threatening. "Who are you? Tell me your name." The soul looked up and quickly adapted to her condition. "Xiao Xilan, thanks fellow Taoist for giving me a second life." Emo Chinga was stunned, but soon she was overjoyed and asked, "You're Xiao Xilan? Xuanji School's Xiao Xilan?" Chapter 564. Xiao Xilan was stunned. She'd been trapped for thousands of years, so she was a bit unfamiliar with people. After a while, she asked tentatively, "Fellow Taoist, you are?" "I'm a cultivator from Shenqing School." "Oh." Xiao Xilan nodded. "Fellow Taoist, you're so young. You must have formed your nascent soul recently, right? I've never heard of such a young fellow nascent soul cultivator from Shenqing School." Xiao Xilan's expression had always been calm. Although she was only a soul, her bearing was still extraordinary. Emo Chinga praised him inwardly. No wonder Wanderer Ziwei still couldn't forget him. "Senior Xiao, you don't know, but 5,000 years have passed. This world isn't the one you're familiar with." Xiao Xilan was stunned and didn't regain her composure for a long time. Then, "Senior has been trapped in this soul bead for 5,000 years. 5,000 years? Xiao Xilan murmured. 5,000 years? Upon seeing her expression, Emo Chinga frowned. "Senior." She was afraid Xiao Xilan would lose control after learning the world had changed. Xiao Xilan quickly put away her sadness. "Thank you for saving me, fellow Taoist. May I ask how Xuanji School is now?" Emo Chinga paused for a moment, then said, "Xuanji School declined not long after Senior fell." This time Xiao Xilan just closed her eyes and sighed. Knowing that 5,000 years had passed, she already guessed that Xuanji School no longer existed. Xuanji School's foundation was too shallow. Once she fell, even if they weren't destroyed by others, they would have ended up in internal strife. Xiao Xilan quickly composed herself and asked, "Fellow Taoist, may I ask how you know about my origin?" Emo Chinga smiled and said frankly, "We came to look for you." Oh. Xiao Xilan was surprised again. Then she heard an even more surprised sentence. "Senior Xiao, do you remember the name Su Jiwei?" Xiao Xilan was speechless as if she had been hit by a heavy punch. Seeing her like this, Emo Chinga knew she also had deep feelings for Wanderer Ziwei, but fate made fools of people. She sighed softly and said, "I was entrusted by Wanderer Ziwei to look for Senior Xiao." After a while, Xiao Xilan's expression slowly calmed down. She smiled bitterly and said, "Wanderer Ziwei? Does he really think he's an wanderer just because he left the school? Su Jiwei, can you pretend nothing happened just because you don't face it? There is no medicine for regret in this world and you can't turn back time." She spoke each word calmly, but both of them could hear the sorrow in her voice. There were many sad things in this world, but the most sorrowful was the hopeless parting. Knowing that the other person was still alive in this world, knowing that they loved each other, yet they could not be together. Neither Emo Chinga nor Qin Shi interrupted her until she asked again, "Su Jiwei? 5,000 years have passed, so he can't still be alive. Could he have advanced to the deification realm?" Emo Chinga smiled and said, "In Senior Zhao's opinion, how high is the possibility of Senior Ziwei advancing to the deification realm?" Xiao Xilan said without the slightest hesitation, "With his talent and temperament, it wouldn't be strange if he reached the deification stage. However, if he had really reached the soul formation stage, he would have personally come to find me." Emo Chinga sighed. Senior has a deep understanding of Senior Ziwei. He indeed hasn't reached the deification realm. Xiao Xilan smiled bitterly. We've been husband and wife for 200 years. How could I not know his temperament? Since he asked fellow Taoists to find me, he must have encountered something that he couldn't do anything about. Yes. Senior Ziwei once took a step into the deification realm, but unfortunately he failed in the end. After he died, his divine sense was sealed. Mo Chinga briefly explained what happened. Of course, she didn't mention the restriction placed on her. Xiao Xilan was silent after listening to her story. Although she could forcibly bring her soul back, Mo Chinga didn't want to force her. She said, Senior Xiao, no matter what grudges you had between the two of you, it's all in the past. Now, one of you only has divine sense and the other only has a soul. Before long, both of you will disappear, so what grudges can't be resolved? Once your memories dissipate, you'll be strangers in your next life. Xiao Xilan felt like she was struck by lightning. She murmured, strangers? Mo Chinga didn't speak again. Although it was painful not to be together, at least they knew that the person they loved still existed in this world and that the other person also missed them. Therefore, even if they could never be together, they still had the happiness of being alone. But if they became strangers, the only warmth left in their hearts would also be gone. For people like them who had love in their hearts, this was the most unbearable thing. Xiao Xilan didn't say anything. In this short period of time, she remembered a lot of things. Although there were thousands of souls inside the soul pearl, most of them were wandering souls. There were only a few souls that retained their memories. The reason these souls could retain their memories was because they had obsessions and didn't want their memories to be erased. Even so, as time passed, the soul's spiritual wisdom would slowly dissipate until they became wandering souls. Obsessions weren't unchanging. As time passed, obsessions would also slowly fade away. She was the only one who retained her spiritual wisdom during these 5,000 years and didn't dissipate at all. Because her obsessions were engraved deeper than anyone else's. Not to mention 50 million years, even if it was 10,000 years or 100,000 years, she knew that she absolutely wouldn't forget it. When she was young, her family was destroyed, she painstakingly cultivated for 100 years, and then she met him. He wasn't a good person. She knew it the moment she met him, but she never thought he would be one of the murderers who exterminated Tianliang School. Those hands were once stained with the blood of Tianliang School, and among them were her relatives. If she was in the school that day, she might have died in his hands, and there wouldn't be the rest of the story. But she definitely wouldn't forget this suffering, and she couldn't accept that the person who exterminated the school was the person who shared the same bed as her. So she could only leave, return to Xuanji School, and never see him again. Sometimes she would think, why did she meet him? Why was he the culprit who exterminated the school? If she had nothing to do with Tianliang School, she could ignore all the evil he had done. But there was no medicine for regret in this world, and she couldn't turn back time. When she was forming her nascent soul, she was almost trapped in her heart demon and couldn't get out. In the end, she succeeded because of a belief. Even if they couldn't be together, at least they lived under the same sky, looked at the same mountains, breathed the same air, and walked the same path. After 1,000 years, they would all pass away, and all their grudges would be gone with the wind. But she didn't wait for such an ending. He betrayed the school and sent a message saying that he would wait for her in 9 Spirit Mountains Wind Breath Valley forever, even if it was 100 years, 1,000 years, until he passed away. And she died a violent death. She wasn't willing to accept such an ending. How could she accept it? She couldn't love him and she couldn't kill him. In this life she was in a dilemma, and every step she took was difficult. This obsession, from the moment the truth was revealed, sowed a seed in her heart. Day by day, it grew stronger until it completely filled her heart. Now 5,000 years had passed. Only a few people remembered the disaster of Tianliang School's extermination. What they saw was only a few lines of words in ancient records. Even the Xuanji School they rebuilt also disappeared. But he kept his promise and waited for her in Wind Breath Valley until he passed away. She, on the other hand, became a ghost and was trapped in the soul bead for 5,000 years. Maybe she could keep her memories and become a ghost cultivator, but what about him? His divine sense would dissipate sooner or later and Su Jiwei would no longer exist in this world. Okay. Mo Chinga heard Xiao Xilan's calm voice. Take me there. Mo Chinga heaved a sigh of relief. She broke the soul bead again and released all the souls inside. Senior, please enter the soul bead. Xiao Xilan didn't hesitate. Her incorporeal body turned into light smoke and drilled into the soul bead. Mo Chinga put the soul bead away and sighed with relief. She looked at Qin Shi. Let's go. Qin Shi nodded and took the sword light back into his body. The two of them turned into flight lights and flew towards Jin. *****. 2 days later, Mo Chenga and Qin landed on a cliff outside Wind Breath Valley. Compared to 100 years ago, the fog in Wind Breath Valley seemed to be thicker. They stood on the cliff and saw the fog surging around their feet like waves. Mo Chenga frowned and said, "It's a bit strange." Qin nodded. "And this fog doesn't seem to be natural." As soon as he finished speaking, the two of them looked at each other and looked up at the same time with strange expressions. A sword light appeared in their field of vision. It hovered in the sky a few times then fell down. The flight light dispersed. When they saw the person's face, the three of them were shocked and shouted, "It's you!" The person who fell on the sword light was actually Jing Xingji. The three of them looked at each other. After a long time, Qin asked, "What are you doing here?" Jing Xingji said, "I'm looking for fated chances. What about you?" He suddenly took a step back vigilantly. "Don't tell me you also know." Before he could finish, Mo Chenga rolled her eyes at him. "If I want to rob you, I'll have plenty of chances." Jing Xingji thought it was reasonable. Fated chances for sword cultivators weren't very useful to them. "Then what are you doing here?" Qin said, "If I'm not mistaken, our goals are the same." Jing Xingji was stunned and stepped back again. Qin was also annoyed. "Do you really want us to rob you?" Mo Chenga also understood. She said in surprise, "What a coincidence. Venerable Swordsman Yuanying also came here?" Venerable Swordsman Yuanying said she once promised a senior of Gujian sect something. In return, that senior gave his junior a fated chance. Someone who could be called senior by Venerable Swordsman Yuanying had to be at least in the nascent soul realm and was older than Venerable Swordsman Yuanying. Wasn't Wanderer Ziwei such a person? He was a cultivator of Gujian sect 5,000 years ago with amazing divine powers. He was definitely worthy of being called senior by Venerable Swordsman Yuanying. It seemed that Venerable Swordsman Yuanying also came here in the past 100 years and promised Wanderer Ziwei to help him find Xiao Xilan. Wanderer Ziwei, on the other hand, gave his token and promised to give his junior a fated chance because they were both from Gujian sect. What's going on? Jing Xingji was bewildered. The person we're looking for is a senior of Gujian sect, Mo Chenga said. This is the important matter I mentioned a few days ago. Jing Xingji was confused. Mo Chenga was about to explain in detail when she suddenly saw the fog in Wind Rest Valley parting. Someone came up. Chapter 565. Mo Chenga was extremely astonished. How could there be people in Wind's Rest Valley? Although Wanderer Ziwei only had a wisp of his divine sense left, the great formation he left behind was extremely powerful, so there shouldn't be anyone who could occupy Fengxi Valley, right? With that thought in mind, the newcomer quickly flew over. Not one person but a group of people. Under the leadership of a core formation female cultivator, 8 foundation building female disciples flew up on a huge flying sword. The 3 of them stared at the 9 people without blinking. Upon seeing them, the core formation female cultivator looked astonished. Her gaze swept past Jing Xingji then Qin before finally settling on Mo Chenga. "Little sister Yi?" What she said was a question. Startled, Mo Chenga stared at the woman up and down. She was about 30 years old and had a gentle countenance. Although she was charming, she was also proud and aloof. She hesitantly asked, "Sister Shang?" The female cultivator arched her eyebrows and smiled. "It's me." Mo Chenga was shocked. Shang Ruan's current appearance was poles apart from how she looked back then. It wasn't her appearance that was different, it was her bearing that was different. Back then Shang Ruan was gentle and generous. But under the gentle appearance of the current Shang Ruan was a sharp sword aura. Upon seeing the sword on her back, Mo Chenga blurted out, You obtained Wanderer Ziwei's inheritance?" Shang Ruan nodded softly. "This is a fated chance younger sister left for me. If it wasn't for younger sister's kindness, I'm afraid I would have lost my life long ago. How could I have become master's disciple then?" Although she was only in the core formation realm, Mo Chenga was already in the nascent soul realm, but Mo Chenga still called Mo Chenga little sister, with a calm expression. There wasn't the slightest trace of uneasiness. Upon seeing this, not only did Mo Chenga not feel offended by Shang Ruan's behavior, she even sighed with emotion. Shang Ruan's temperament had once again improved compared to back then. Even when she saw a nascent soul cultivator, she was still calm and collected. She could even converse like she did back then. But Shang Ruan chuckled again. No matter what, he can't compare to younger sister. In just over 100 years, he managed to advance from the foundation building realm to the nascent soul realm. He's truly a first-class genius in the celestial pole. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, I really wouldn't dare to believe it. Sister Shang isn't bad either. Back then she was only in the early stage of foundation establishment. Now she's already in the middle stage of core formation. This kind of speed naturally couldn't compare to hers, but it wasn't inferior to Xianqing School's elite disciples. Shang Ruan chuckled. It's fine if it's other people, but younger sister praising me like this, it really makes me feel ashamed. Emo Chenga smiled. When Emo Chenga saw Shang Ruan again, she exclaimed in her heart. Back then, when she left Shang Ruan in Ziwei's Immortal's cave, she occasionally thought about Shang Ruan and wondered if Shang Ruan survived. She never expected that not only did Shang Ruan survive, but she also obtained Wanderer Ziwei's inheritance. Although Shang Ruan was only in the core formation realm now, with her temperament and Wanderer Ziwei's swordsmanship, advancing to the nascent soul realm was only a matter of time. Shang Ruan paused for a moment. Her gaze then fell on Qin Shi and Jing Xingji. These two are? Oh, Mo Tiange said, this is fellow Taoist Jing Xingji from Gujian sect. Shang Ruan's eyes brightened. Right after that she bowed and said, greetings to Senior Jing. Wanderer Ziwei came from Gujian sect, so she could also be considered a successor of Gujian sect. In this way she and Jing Xingji could be considered fellow disciples. Now that he knew Shang Ruan was that senior successor, Jing Xingji stopped being careless and politely returned her greeting. What about this one? Shang Ruan looked at Qin Shi with a smile. She had a passionate past, so how could she not see that the relationship between the two of them wasn't ordinary? Although they didn't act intimately, there was a tacit understanding and closeness between their actions. They seemed very natural. This is my senior martial brother and also my Dao companion. We're from the same sect. His surname is Qin and his Taoist name is Shoujing, Mo Tiange said calmly. A hint of astonishment flitted across Shang Ruan's face. So senior is Xianqing School's Qin Shoujing. Her gaze then shifted to Mo Tiange. With a meaningful look she said, I suddenly remembered a rumor. Under Lord Taoist Jinghe of Xianqing School, there were two genius cultivators. One was a junior in the clan, Qin Shoujing, and the other was his last disciple, Mo Qingwei. I wonder? Mo Tiange blushed with shame. I didn't tell you the truth back then. Big sister Shang, please don't blame me. Shang Ruan laughed. How could I dare blame you? Younger sister is now a famous top-notch cultivator in the celestial pole. Me calling you younger sister already means I'm climbing the social ladder. Mo Tiange smiled but said nothing. Shang Ruan then said with a stern expression, You're here to see my master, right? Yes, Mo Tiange answered. Elder sister Shang, please inform him that I've fulfilled our previous agreement and requested to see Senior Ziwei. Oh. Shang Ruan was surprised but also happy. Did you find Master's wife? You can say so, Mo Tiange answered. Their agreement was to find Xiao Xilan's remains and bury her together with Wanderer Ziwei. However, Xiao Xilan died in the realm of Ghost City 5,000 years ago, so Mo Tiange really didn't have the ability to find her remains. Fortunately, she found Xiao Xilan's soul, so they should be considered to have fulfilled their agreement. Shang Ruan nodded. Without saying anything unnecessary, she stepped aside and said, Master ordered us to see him directly if it's about this matter. This way please. The three of them got on the huge sword. Shang Ruan controlled the flying sword and descended to the bottom of the valley. When Mo Tiange came down from the sword and saw the scene in the valley, she was astonished. Elder sister Shang, this is... Inside Wind Rest Valley people were coming and going. Some were practicing swordsmanship, some were planting spiritual plants, some were handling game, and some were teaching children how to read. After taking a closer look, they saw a circle of stone houses built along the bottom of the valley. The scale of the houses was no different from that of a small cultivation group. Shang Ruan watched the scene in front of her with a smile. Back then, Master once saved a clan of mortals and they lived here for 1,000 years. After Master passed away, those mortals moved out of Wind Rest Valley. After I advanced to the core formation realm, Master ordered me to break the Great Formation here and lay a new defensive formation here. That way Wind Rest Valley would still be a paradise and those mortals would return. I decided to accept disciples here, and I was lucky enough to teach a few disciples. I see. It was no wonder when they came down there was only fog and no gales. The three of them followed Shang Ruan to Xiao Xilan's statue. After the several foundation-building female disciples activated the mechanism, they excused themselves. Please. Shang Ruan raised her hand then took the lead and entered the cave. This Ziwei's Immortal's cave was very different from before. The walls were inlaid with moonstones and the floor was spotless. Under Shang Rowan's lead, the three of them passed through the hall, walked through the stone path, and arrived at the hall where the 5 elements platform was located. Shang Rowan made a hand seal, then a stone platform quietly moved over. After the 4 of them got on it, the stone platform slowly and steadily flew towards the exit. After leaving the 5 elements platform, the passage of corpses and bones also disappeared. Under the illumination of the Mother Moonstone, the 4 of them smoothly arrived at the stone room where Wanderer Ziwei resided. Please wait a moment. Shang Rowan took a few steps forward, clasped her hands and closed her eyes. It was unclear what kind of spell she was casting. A moment later, a tired voice rang out inside the stone room. Disciple, why did you wake me up? Shang Rowan said respectfully, Master, the person you've been waiting for is here. The person I've been waiting for. Wanderer Ziwei paused for a moment then suddenly said in shock, You, little girl, you've actually formed your nascent soul? Mo Chenga smiled then took a step forward. Senior, long time no see. Wanderer Ziwei was somewhat speechless. He said with disappointment and frustration, Sure enough, the new generation replaces the old. Disciple, how many years has it been? Master, it's been 152 years since we entered the valley. 152 years. Wanderer Ziwei exclaimed. Little girl, you're not 200 years old yet, right? Yes, Junior is 189 years old now. 189. Wanderer Ziwei murmured, When did such a genius appear in the celestial pole? Mo Chenga wasn't complacent at all. She just said indifferently, What's the use of being a genius under the deification realm? Wanderer Ziwei couldn't help but laugh. Little girl, you're quite ambitious. Mo Chenga smiled and said, Junior still has more than 1,000 years of lifespan left. If Junior doesn't want to advance to the deification realm, that would be too lacking in ambition. Well said. How can cultivators like us not have the ambition to advance to the deification realm? Wanderer Ziwei raised his voice. Disciple, you have to remember this. Shang Rowan smiled bitterly. Master, disciple is 250 years old now, but I'm only in the middle stage of the core formation realm. I can't compare to little sister Yi. Hey, how can you be so unduly humble? Although you started late, advancing to the nascent soul realm in 100 years isn't a problem. When I advanced to the nascent soul realm, I was 300 years old. If my luck wasn't bad, I would have advanced to the deification realm already. Shang Rowan knew her master's temperament, so she could only say, Yes, master. Disciple will work hard. That's more like it. Wanderer Ziwei was satisfied. He paused for a moment then said, Little girl, who are these 2 people to you? Oh, one of them is a sword cultivator. Jing Xingji took a step forward then bowed. Gujian Sect's Jing Xingji greets Senior. The 2 of them looked at each other and smiled. This guy. He said he didn't want to be bound by the sect anymore, but now, didn't he still consider himself a cultivator of Gujian Sect? You're a disciple of Gujian Sect? Wanderer Ziwei said happily, Why didn't Yuanying mention there was a junior with such potential in Gujian Sect? Jing Xingji was silent for a moment then said, I don't dare to deceive Senior. Junior left Gujian Sect 100 years ago. Wanderer Ziwei was dumbfounded then said angrily, Humph? What did Yuanying do? She actually expelled you from the sect. Jing Xingji was startled. He hastily took out the small flying sword Venerable Swordsman Yuanying gave him and said, Senior, Junior left Gujian Sect, which has nothing to do with Martial Uncle Yuanying. Martial Uncle also gave Junior the fated chance Senior promised. This is the keepsake. Wanderer Ziwei's divine sense circled the small flying sword then he said, This is indeed my keepsake without a doubt. Does that mean you plan to return to Gujian Sect? Junior, doesn't plan to. You don't plan to return to Gujian Sect? Wanderer Ziwei said, My secret teachings won't be passed on to cultivators outside of Gujian Sect. If you don't return to Gujian Sect, it's useless even if you bring this keepsake. Jing Xingji lowered his head and said nothing. Seeing that he didn't say anything, Wanderer Ziwei said, Think about it first. Tell me your decision later. He then said to Mo Chenga, Little girl, what's your name again? Mo Chenga was speechless for a while then answered, Junior's Taoist name is Qingwei. There's still several decades to go. Why did you come back so early? Do you expect me to lift your restriction out of a moment of kindness? Upon hearing Wanderer Ziwei's matter-of-fact words, Mo Chenga smiled. Senior, don't tell me it never occurred to you that Junior completed the task you entrusted to me? Wanderer Ziwei paused for a moment. Realizing what she said, he hurriedly said, You said you completed? Mo Chenga muttered. Not really. Junior couldn't find Senior Xiao Xilan's remains, but I found her soul lingering in the human world. Chapter 566. When Mo Chenga returned to Fengshi Valley, Wanderer Ziwei didn't think she completed the task she entrusted to him. Even he himself felt it was very difficult. If Xiao Xilan died in her sect's encampment, with her identity as an elite disciple of a big cultivation group, she only needed to issue a bounty mission in the group. But she didn't. She didn't come back for more than 100 years. Now she came back. From the foundation building realm to the nascent soul realm in 152 years. This was a legend that couldn't be replicated. Therefore he took it for granted that she didn't have time to search for the place where Xiao Xilan died. She probably came back because she didn't find any clues. He didn't expect she really completed it. Moreover, what she found wasn't her remains but her soul. Wanderer Ziwei was so excited that he couldn't speak. After a long time he asked in a hoarse voice, Soul? Does her soul still exist? Yes. Mo Chenga took out the soul bead from her robe. After releasing thousands of souls, Xiao Xilan was left alone in the soul bead. The soul bead's gray color had faded, leaving only a dim light. Xiao Xilan's figure could be vaguely seen in the dim light. Let me see her. Mo Chenga put the soul bead away. Does Junior complete Senior's task? Yes. Wanderer Ziwei said without hesitation. Then Senior, please remove the restriction and fulfill your promise. Wanderer Ziwei sighed softly. This restriction is ineffective now. Mo Chenga was stunned. What? Wanderer Ziwei smiled bitterly. Although I'm a genius, I can't use a strand of divine sense to place a restriction on a nascent soul cultivator. This restriction is effective during the foundation building realm, and it's also effective during the core formation realm. However, once you form your nascent soul, the spiritual aura of heaven and earth will rebuild your body. How can my tiny divine sense resist the power of heaven and earth? The restriction in your head is still there, but it won't activate. I'll teach you a technique to refine it with your divine sense. Mo Chenga was stunned for a long time. Did this mean that she had been deceived? Even if she didn't come back, the restriction wouldn't activate? She frowned imperceptibly and said, Senior's method isn't honorable. Upright? Wanderer Ziwei's voice was full of bitterness. No matter how insufferably arrogant you were when you were alive, once you die you'll have nothing left. Before I passed away, I spent decades setting up a huge array formation in Wind Breath Valley, leaving behind my divine sense and racking my brains to attract foundation establishment cultivators. Why not nascent soul cultivators? Because even if I can trap nascent soul cultivators to death, I have no way of controlling them to fulfill my wish. Everyone was silent. Cultivators like them, no matter how strong they were, could not escape the power of heaven and earth, the rules of life and death. Wanderer Ziwei heaved a long sigh. Now, you're already in the nascent soul realm, while this disciple of mine is only in the core formation realm. Even if you want to leave Fengshi Valley, I can't do anything about it. I can only blame myself for never anticipating that you'd form your nascent soul in such a short time. Little Sister Yi, Shang Ruan said sincerely, my master was wrong in this matter, but he didn't intend to harm anyone. Since I have inherited Master's legacy, and Master is no longer around, I have to take responsibility. Master had promised me everything in Wind Breath Valley. Other than that, I am willing to listen to your orders from now on. When she said the last few words, she lowered her gaze. Her expression was full of respect, no longer as cordial as before. Big Sister Shang? Mo Chenga stared at her with a complicated gaze. You're really loyal and affectionate. Shang Ruan smiled. She stared at the table and said faintly, back then, although I survived, my heart was like dead ashes. If it wasn't because Master pitied me and took pity on me, there would have been no Shang Ruan in this world. Master gave me a new lease on life, so no matter how I repay him, it's what I should do. Mo Chenga also felt sad when she recalled what happened between them as husband and wife. No matter how bad Yao Zixio was, the affection between him and Shang Ruan was sincere. Shang Ruan was deeply in love, so after she lost her lover, she presumably didn't want to live anymore. As for Wanderer Ziwei, he was conceited all his life. Xiao Xilan was the only regret he had in his life, but fate made fools of people. They couldn't be together. Both of them were deeply hurt by love and sympathized with each other in the same boat. It was no wonder Wanderer Ziwei took pity on her and passed on his legacy to her. Mo Chenga sighed, then took out her soul bead again. Without saying anything, she broke the bead's bindings and released Xiao Xilan. A wisp of smoke escaped from the soul bead, transforming into a woman's figure. Xiao Xilan opened her eyes and looked around. This is... Mo Tiange didn't say anything until a moment later. Wanderer Ziwei's trembling voice rang out. Xilan. After just 2 words, Wanderer Ziwei was already speechless. Xiao Xilan was suddenly stunned. You, a wisp of divine sense and a soul looked at each other without saying anything. Shang Ruan signaled Mo Tiange, and the 4 of them left the stone room quietly. The stone door isolated the sound, and the 4 of them stood there in silence. A moment later, Shang Ruan broke the silence and asked with a smile, Little Sister Yi, how's the situation now? We're in the secular world, so we're not very well informed, so we don't know how the fight is going. I'm also not sure, Mo Tiange said. It seems to be in a stalemate. Shang Ruan said with astonishment, Hasn't the Immortal Alliance been established? With your cultivation level and your position as an elder in the Immortal Alliance, how could you not know the situation? Mo Tiange said vaguely, It's a long story. To put it simply, I've been traveling outside for the past few years and haven't been back for long, so I'm not very clear about the situation. Oh. Shang Ruan didn't ask further. She knew some things were personal secrets, so it wasn't convenient for her to answer. Miss Shang, she asked, all cultivators in the Celestial Pole belong to the Immortal Alliance. Have you received any summons? Shang Ruan shook her head. With Marshal Uncle Yuanying's guarantee, the Immortal Alliance didn't summon us. Shang Ruan paused and looked at Mo Tiange. If we go to Xianqing School in the future, you'll be in charge. Mo Tiange was stunned. She finally realized Shang Ruan was serious, so she shook her head and said with a smile, Soon we'll also have to participate in the war. Big Sister Shang, you don't have to take what I said seriously. She paused for a moment then said, I won't give up on Senior Ziwei's promise, but since we're fated, I don't want to go to Wine Stop Valley. Shang Ruan felt relieved. She bowed and said, Thank you, little sister. No need to be so polite. Mo Tiange helped her up. Shang Ruan explained, There are many mortals in Wind Stop Valley now, so it's inconvenient to move. It's not that I don't want to give it to little sister. Mo Tiange smiled and didn't mind. If what she said was true, Shang Ruan would recognize her as her master. Even if it was for Wanderer Ziwei who would be willing to be a servant. From Mo Tiange's point of view, taking Shang Ruan as a servant wasn't necessary. She was a nascent soul cultivator now, so many people in Xianqing School worked for her. Jing Xingji suddenly said, Miss Shang, since you're Senior Ziwei's disciple, Marshal Uncle Yuanying must also recognize you as a disciple of Gujian sect, right? Shang Ruan nodded. Yes. That being the case, even if Senior Ziwei isn't here anymore, you can still return to Gujian sect. Shang Ruan smiled. She understood his good intentions. Thank you for your concern, Senior Jing. Although Wind Stop Valley is small, its great defensive formation isn't inferior to a sect's. Seeing how confident she was, Jing Xingji didn't say much. The 4 of them waited for a long time before the stone door finally opened. Wanderer Ziwei's voice rang out. Come in. Inside the stone room, nothing had changed. Xiao Xilan stood there quietly, looking at them with a calm gaze. Before the 4 of them could say anything, Wanderer Ziwei already said, Little girl, thank you for finding Xilan for me. His voice was also very calm. Presumably, the 2 of them had reconciled, right? Mo Tiange guessed. She said, If Senior didn't place a restriction on me, Junior wouldn't have gone to look for Senior Xiao. There's nothing to thank me for. Her tone was indifferent and distant. After being deceived for more than 100 years, she often feared she didn't have enough time. Although she didn't mind, it wasn't that she wasn't angry at all. Wanderer Ziwei heard her and smiled wryly. Girl, you really hold a grudge. You didn't lose anything in this matter. The things I've accumulated throughout my life aren't ordinary goods. Even so, how could money move Mo Tiange? Seeing that she wasn't moved, Wanderer Ziwei had no choice but to say, Deification experiences, this should be enough to compensate you, right? Mo Tiange's eyes finally brightened. Really? Of course. How can I break my promise to a junior? Wanderer Ziwei said, It's fine as long as you don't make things difficult for my disciples. Mo Tiange smiled, revealing her shining teeth. Junior never planned to make things difficult for them. Wanderer Ziwei no longer said anything. His divine comprehension wrapped around her and an art was imprinted in her mind. Soon after, he said, The deification experiences are in the Rosy Clouds cave. He said to Shang Ruan, Disciple, take them to the Rosy Clouds cave later. Yes, master, Shang Ruan answered respectfully. Brat surname Jing, Daoist Ziwei said, have you thought it through? Jing Xingji's expression was complicated. Junior has thought it through. He paused for a moment and gradually became determined. Junior doesn't want to return to Gujian sect for any purpose. Wanderer Ziwei was silent for a while, then said with a sigh, good. You have your own beliefs. Given time, you'll definitely become a grandmaster. Jing Xingji lowered his head and didn't say anything. Comprehending the sword intent of the deification realm was a temptation that sword cultivators couldn't refuse, but he still made this decision. A few days ago he told Venerable Swordsman Yuanying that he didn't want to return to Gujian sect. Now that he wanted to return for the sake of swordsmanship, such an action went against his conscience. However, Wanderer Ziwei's tone changed. If you can keep your conscience, you're qualified to receive my inheritance. Huh. Jing Xingji suddenly looked up. He was stunned. There was a smile in Wanderer Ziwei's voice. Since Yuanying let you come, it means he's approved of you. He's the head of Gujian sect, so why should I worry? Upon understanding the meaning behind Wanderer Ziwei's words, Jing Xingji became excited. Senior, disciple, take him to the sword cave, Wanderer Ziwei ordered. Yes, master. After dealing with these matters, Wanderer Ziwei heaved a long sigh. All right, all of you can go. Being able to see Xylan again before my divine sense dissipates is enough for me. Shang Ruan sensed the sense of farewell in his words. She was stunned. Master? Wanderer Ziwei chuckled. Master can't hold on much longer, so you don't need to be sad. Shang Ruan didn't say anything, but her expression was mournful. Mo Chinga couldn't help but think of Fu Yaozi. She was also silent. I'm already very satisfied to be able to spend my last moments with Xylan. Several dozen years later, I'll dissipate and Xylan will enter the cycle of reincarnation again. Maybe we'll be fated to meet again in our next lives. Go. Wanderer Ziwei sounded satisfied. I have no regrets in this life. Shang Ruan lowered her head and solemnly saluted him, then led the three of them out of the cave. Chapter 567. Once she walked out of Ziwei's Immortal's cave, she turned around and looked up. The stone statue, which was hundreds of feet high, was cleaned thoroughly. The woman's face was gentle and elegant, and her long dress fluttered in the wind. She looked lifelike, exactly the same as Xiao Xylan. How much did one miss a person to be able to portray these subtle temperaments so clearly? Do you want to go to the Rosy Cloud Cave first or the Sword Cave? Shang Ruan asked. Jing Xingji asked impatiently, what's going on with the Sword Cave? Shang Ruan answered, inside the Sword Cave, there's a great formation laid by Master. Inside this formation, sword aura and surging sword intent are everywhere, sealing the sword technique Master comprehended when he was alive. Oh. Wanderer Ziwei's talent was indeed astonishing to be able to set up formations with swordsmanship. So you're saying we have to slowly comprehend it inside the sword cave? Mo Chinga asked. Shang Ruan nodded. Correct. Back when I entered the cave, I spent 3 whole years comprehending it. Mo Chinga raised her head to look at Jing Xingji. Fellow Taoist Jing, since you've entered the sword cave, we'll take our leave first. Jing Xingji's mind was on the sword cave, so he waved his hand indifferently. Whatever. In any case, I'm not going back to Kunwu. Upon seeing his expression, Mo Chinga smiled and asked, do you still have the thunder beads you used in Sandstorm City? Thunder bead? Jing Xingji recalled. He fished out one and was incomparably generous. I obtained this in the bottomless ruined sea. I'm giving it to you. She then said to Shang Ruan, I'm afraid fellow Taoist Jing can't wait any longer. Let's take him there first. Seeing how impatient Jing Xingji looked, Shang Ruan also pursed her lips into a smile. The two of you, please wait here for a moment. Right after that, she turned around and said, Senior Jing, please come with me. Jing Xingji nodded and turned around to wave at them. Let's go. Not long after, Shang Ruan came back. She took the two of them to Cumulus Cloud's cave. On the way there, she introduced the place to them. Cumulus Cloud's cave is where Master hides his treasures. All of Master's treasures are inside Cumulus Cloud's cave. Mo Chinga looked at the busy mortals and cultivators in the valley and asked, where are the resources you need to cultivate? Shang Ruan answered, there are a lot of medicinal gardens in the valley and quite a lot of spiritual plants are planted there. In addition, there's a small spirit stone mine beneath the spirit vein. Although it's not big, it's enough for us to cultivate. Mo Chinga nodded lightly. In that case, she wouldn't have to worry about taking Wanderer Ziwei's treasures. Accumulated Clouds Cave was located on a cliff in the middle of the valley. Shang Rowan flew them up and used a special technique to open the restriction. Only then did Accumulated Clouds Cave's true appearance appear. As soon as they entered the cave, Mo Chenga and Qin Shi were shocked by the things inside. There were all kinds of ores and high-grade spirit stones, as well as all kinds of magic treasures and magic tools. Wanderer Ziwei definitely wasn't a good person. How many cultivators did he have to kill to collect so many things on his own? Look, there's even a demonic technique Jade Scroll. After recovering from her shock, Mo Chenga started to discuss with Qin Shi. Senior Martial Brother, these spirit tools and magic tools are useless to us, so we don't need to take them with us, right? Qin Shi smiled and said, you decide. Mo Chenga looked around and put most of the things into her Chenkuan ring. She then said to Shang Rowan, Big Sister Shang, we don't need the rest. Shang Rowan bowed gratefully. Thank you, little sister. The things left behind were mostly spirit stones and low-grade magic tools, which happened to be useful to them. After leaving Accumulated Clouds Cave, Mo Chenga said, Big Sister Shang will leave now. If you need anything in the future, you can come to Shenqing School to find us. Shang Rowan nodded and said jokingly, Gujian sect has Martial Uncle Yuanying and Shenqing School has Little Sister Yi. I'm really lucky to have two nascent soul cultivators as my backers. Mo Chenga also smiled. That being the case, we'll meet again someday. We'll meet again someday. Under Shang Rowan's gaze, the two of them flew away. Upon returning to Shenqing School, Mo Chenga immediately heard a piece of news. Luo Fengxue successfully formed her gold core and would soon take over the position of the school head. Thus, she went to Sweet Dew Peak right after she returned to her cave. The disciple on duty on Sweet Dew Peak saw her and immediately went to report to Luo Fengxue. Luo Fengxue quickly came to greet her. Martial Uncle Qingwei. They hadn't seen each other for 100 years, but Luo Fengxue still looked the same. Mo Chenga looked her up and down, then said with a smile, This is the first time I've heard you call me Martial Uncle. Feels good. That's easy. I'll call you that every day. Luo Fengxue smiled, pulled Mo Chenga's hand, and walked towards her own cave. How long has it been since we last met? The last time was when Martial Uncle Shoujing formed her nascent soul. After sitting down in Luo Fengxue's cave, Mo Chenga asked, I heard you're going to take over the position of the school head. Luo Fengxue nodded. Senior Martial Brother Shin's lifespan is almost up, so he wants to resign from the position of the school head, so I took over. Mo Chenga frowned. These are troubled times. It's not easy to be the school head. Wars were frequent. Not only did the school head have to deal with general affairs, but he also had to dispatch disciples and prepare supplies. It was very complicated. Aside from me, who else would want to be the school head? Luo Fengxue said self-deprecatingly, in peaceful times, everyone would fight to be the school head, but now they're hiding as far away as they can. Seeing that Mo Chenga was still frowning, Luo Fengxue smiled and said, You don't have to feel unjust for me. Being the school head has always been one of my goals. You also know what kind of person I am. I don't have such great ambitions to become a nascent soul Lord Taoist and oversee a peak. Mo Chenga relaxed her brows. It's good that you're willing. Luo Fengxue looked her up and down, then said, You've been gone for dozens of years. Grandmaster and Martial Uncle Shoujing were both worried that something might have happened to you. I was the only one who wasn't worried. I knew you'd come back safely. Mo Chenga smiled. Am I an unkillable cockroach? Who said you're not? Luo Fengxue blinked. Think about the demonic beast riot last time. You survived that kind of situation. The corners of Mo Chenga's mouth curled up. What Luo Fengxue said was right. Ever since she started practicing aura refining, she'd faced many dangerous situations and escaped from death. When I came out of closed-door meditation, I heard that not only did you come back safely, but you also formed your nascent soul, Luo Fengxue said enviously. Luo Fengxue said enviously, back then we were building our foundations together. Now, you're already a Lord Taoist of the nascent soul realm while I've barely formed my gold core. I'm afraid I won't have a chance to form my nascent soul in the future. Mo Chenga said, You haven't reached 200 years old yet, so your lifespan is still very long. How could you possibly not have a chance? Luo Fengxue shook her head. I don't have a firm Tao heart like yours, so the possibility of me forming my nascent soul is very small. Let's not talk about me. You've been gone for 100 years. There must be a lot of stories, right? Hurry up and tell me. Mo Chenga couldn't help but laugh. Even though she formed her gold core and was already a high-level cultivator, Luo Fengshue's personality was still the same as before she built her foundation. Luo Fengshue couldn't help but sigh as she listened to Emo Chenga roughly narrating her experience. You're really bold. There were so many nascent soul cultivators, but you actually dared. Emo Chenga picked up the teacup, took a sip and said with a warm smile, there's nothing I can do. If I don't dare, I'll lose my life. That's true? Emo Chenga put down the teacup and muttered, there's something I need your help with. What is it? Luo Fengshue asked curiously. You're a nascent soul Lord Taoist now. Is there something you need my help with? Emo Chenga chuckled. You're the future sect head. If I didn't ask you for help, who would I ask for help from? What's the big deal about the sect head? Luo Fengshue said in a self-deprecating manner, I'm just a steward with a bit more power. It's only because of the unusual times that I'm in charge of more things. Emo Chenga knew Luo Fengshue was just being modest. On the surface, with the nascent soul Dao lords around, the sect master had very little authority. In reality, apart from these nascent soul Dao lords, everyone else had to obey the sect master. The sect master had the right to appoint the deacon elders of each hall, had the right to intervene in any hall's affairs, had the right to allocate resources, and was also in charge of the sect's treasury. If it weren't for the fact that they were currently facing a war and the responsibility of the sect leader was too great, and that there were nascent soul Dao lords keeping an eye on things from above, making it impossible for them to do anything, the sect leader would definitely be a cushy job that all the core formation elders would fight for. Nevertheless, Luo Fengshue could be considered to have gotten what she wanted. Her ambition was never in the field of cultivation. If you have something to say, just say it. With your current status, tell the stewards hall. Would they dare to not do their best? Emo Chenga said, I want to find a place. She roughly told her about the 5 Souls sacrificial temple. Since there's an azure dragon, a white tiger, a vermilion bird, and a black tortoise, it's very likely that there's a Qilin there. That's easy, Luo Fengshue said. Just put up a task in the steward's hall and send some disciples to pay attention to this information. It's just that the chances are rather slim. That's why I came to say hello to you. Emo Chenga looked at her and said with a smile, it's a task that's difficult to get results. Other people might not pay attention to it, so I'm just telling you to pay more attention. Rest assured I'll keep an eye on it. Even before she took office, Luo Fengshue had already carried out the tasks of the sect head. Half a day later, Emo Chenga stood up to say goodbye. Luo Fengshue saw her off. In 10 days, my core formation ceremony will be held together with the sect head succession ceremony. You and Martial Uncle Shoujing must come to support me. Rest assured I'll be there. Luo Fengshue was still worried, so she repeatedly warned Emo Chenga several times before letting her go. Emo Chenga was in a very good mood. Yi Jingwen and Luo Fengshue had formed their gold cores. Her former friends were all on the path to the gold core realm. Speaking of which, Xinji had already reached the peak stage of the foundation building realm and would soon form his gold core. After returning to Clear Spring Peak, Emo Chenga and Qin Shi sorted out their gains from this trip. She examined the spiritual beast bracelet given by Devil Monarch Night Frost and found nothing abnormal. In the future, the 3 spiritual beasts could all be stored inside it, so there was no need to carry a pile of spiritual beast bags. Thinking up to this point, she entered the virtual sky world and released the 3 spiritual beasts. In terms of cultivation, spiritual beast bags were naturally inferior to the virtual sky world. Just as she opened Feifei's spiritual beast bag, a vast and austere aura rushed out. Feifei. Emo Chenga was shocked to see Feifei rolling on the ground. She hastily picked it up. What's wrong? In the golden light, Feifei struggled to open its eyes. The white tiger's breath all over its body was strong and ruthless. Can't you absorb this aura? Feifei, bound by the white tiger's breath, said with difficulty, I want to enter closed-door meditation. Emo Chenga didn't hesitate and put it back into the spiritual beast house. The white tiger's breath soon filled the entire virtual sky world. Xiaohua and Xiaofan hid far away, not daring to approach it. Emo Chenga felt even more uneasy. Could it be that Feifei couldn't tame these white tiger's breaths? What should she do? These white tiger's breaths were too ruthless. If Feifei couldn't tame them, it would suffer a backlash. Time gradually passed, but the white tiger's breaths were still strong. Emo Chenga laid a meditation formation outside Feifei's spiritual beast house, hoping it could help it. Apart from this, she was helpless. She could only pray that Feifei could pass this hurdle safely. Chapter 568. 10 days passed but Fei Fei still hadn't come out. Mo Chenga pondered for a moment then decided to go to Luo Fengshue's core formation ceremony and sect head succession ceremony. With Fei Fei's personality, if there was any danger she would have told her long ago. If she didn't say anything she would probably be able to handle it herself. Because Luo Fengshue was going to inherit the position of school head, her core formation ceremony was much grander than others. Not only did all of Xianqing School's disciples come to watch the ceremony, but even cultivation groups that were on good terms with her also sent people to congratulate her. For this reason, Miaoyi and Xianyin had specially used the Three Pure Ones Palace on the main peak. They were the only nascent soul cultivators in Xianqing School during this special period. The others were either in Kuanzhong City or resisting the beast cultivators and devil cultivators, so they couldn't return. However, the 4 grand elders who stayed in the sect were all present, which could be considered very grand. Dressed in splendid attire, Luo Fengshue accepted the sect elder identity tablet sect head Shen bestowed upon her. She then knelt in front of Lord Daoist Xianyin, asking him to bestow her a Daoist name. With a smile on his face, Lord Daoist Xianyin looked at Luo Fengshue and said, "The path to becoming an immortal is boundless and unpredictable. If you don't have a firm Dao heart, it'll be difficult for you to reach the end. I will bestow upon you the Daoist name, Bingxin. I hope that you will hold fast to your Daoist heart, reflect on yourself from time to time, and walk further on the path of immortality." Disciple Bingxin thanks Master for bestowing this name upon me. With a solemn expression, Luo Fengshue kowtowed to express her gratitude. After kowtowing, sect leader Shin said with a smile, "The ceremony is over. Junior Marshal Sister Bing Xn, please rise." Luo Fengshue stood up and was led by school head Shin to the middle of the hall. School head Shin then said in a loud voice, "Disciples, I hereby announce that Sweet Dew Peak's disciple Luo Fengshue has been bestowed a name by her master, Lord Daoist Xianyin. From now on her name is Master Daoist Bingxin." The nearby core formation cultivator congratulated her. Congratulations to Junior Marshal Sister Bingxin for advancing to the core formation realm. After the core formation cultivator, the other foundation building disciples also saluted and congratulated her. Disciples congratulate Marshal Uncle Bing Xin for advancing to the core formation realm. The aura refining disciples in the square shouted in unison. Disciples congratulate Master Daoist Bing Xin for advancing to the core formation realm. After Mo Chinga's disciples finished congratulating her, friends from other cultivation groups came forward one after another. Congratulations Master Daoist Bing Xin. Xianqing School has gained another core formation master. The core formation celebration could be considered to have come to an end. However, Luo Fengshue's situation was different. School head Shin didn't order the disciples to leave. Instead, she once again stood in front of the crowd. As sect head Shin's gaze swept over the foundation building and aura refining disciples lined up neatly outside the hall, her eyes became slightly moist. Scenes from the day she took over the position of sect head Shin flashed before her eyes. It had been more than 200 years since he became the sect master. In the past, when he became Lord Daoist Jinyang's disciple, he also had the ambition to form his nascent soul and go further on the path to immortality. Unfortunately, his aptitude was ordinary and his luck wasn't good enough. Among his fellow apprentices he was ranked last. His lifespan was over half, but he was still at the early stage of core formation. As he grew older day by day he knew that nascent soul was getting further and further away from him. At that time the former sect had abdicated. Lord Daoist Jinyang wanted to choose one of his disciples to be the next sect head, so he stepped forward. In terms of talent he was only mediocre. In the past 200 years he had only made mediocre achievements. However, during his tenure Xianqing School became the #1 cultivation group in the Celestial Pole in one fell swoop. 200 years had passed and he didn't have much lifespan left. Managing the affairs of the sect was becoming more and more difficult. After hesitating for a long time, he finally decided to abdicate and return to the clan. The new generation was replacing the old. His era was over, so it was better for him to return to his family and educate his descendants. "Disciples," sect leader Shin said in a low voice, "I have held the position of sect leader for a long time. Now that I am old and weak, I am unable to continue working for the sect. Therefore, I have decided to abdicate my position." He turned around, looked at Luo Fengshue next to him and said, "Today Lord Daoist Xuanin's disciple Bingxin is young, promising and has outstanding abilities." After several discussions among the Grand Supreme Elders, they decided to let her succeed as the sect head. Right after he finished speaking, aside from the core formation cultivators who remained calm, the foundation building and aura refining disciples were extremely astonished. Many people uttered, "Ah," and the square immediately buzzed. Many people whispered to each other, "Martial Uncle Luo has just reached the core formation realm, and she's already taking over as the sect head? There doesn't seem to be such a precedent in our sect." Yeah, Martial Uncle Luo is only a little over 100 years old. She's so young. There was no news at all before. How did she hand over the position of sect head? Those core formation martial uncles already knew about it, right? Our ranks aren't high enough, so of course we didn't hear about it. Martial Uncle Luo is also not bad. She's good-tempered and beautiful. Yeah. All the disciples were very satisfied with Luo Fengxue succeeding as the sect head. The female disciples thought she was capable, and the male disciples thought she was beautiful. Regardless of the reason, they all agreed. Seeing this scene, sect leader Shen once again sighed inwardly. Soon after, he led Luo Fengxue to kowtow to the patriarch. After kowtowing, sect leader Shen took out a square seal. This is Xianqing School's sect head seal. I'll give it to you now. I hope you'll do your best for Xianqing School. Luo Fengxue took it and said respectfully, "Yes, sect head." Sect leader Shen let go of her hand. "From now on, you're the sect head of Xianqing School." Then she took 2 steps forward, turned around, and bowed. Disciple kowtows to sect head. The core formation cultivators on both sides also turned around and saluted. "Greetings, sect head." After them were the foundation building disciples outside the hall and the aura refining disciples in the square. "Greetings, sect leader." Thousands of disciples shouted in unison, their voices shaking the heavens. "Disciples, please rise." With a smile on her face, Luo Fengxue motioned for them to rise. She already had the demeanor of a school head. With a smile on her face, Mo Chenga couldn't help but recall the first time she met Luo Fengxue. Mo Chenga never expected that Luo Fengxue, who was still an aura-refining disciple when they met, would one day inherit the position of sect head and become the head of the Celestial Pole's #1 cultivation group. Even if the nascent Soul Dao Lords were no longer cultivating in seclusion today, her position as the sect master was not light. All the Grand Supreme Elders left the mountain to participate in the war between beast cultivators and devil cultivators. Luo Fengxue was in charge of all matters related to supplies, personnel, and the like. Although the benefits weren't much, the weight was extremely heavy. After the sect head succession ceremony ended, all the disciples dispersed. The core formation cultivators entertained the guests while the new sect head, Luo Fengxue, followed the Grand Supreme Elders towards Lord Daoist Xuanin's Immortal's Cave. The 4 Grand Supreme Elders sat down, but Luo Fengxue, the new sect head, had to stand. There was nothing she could do. Although she was the sect leader, the Grand Supreme Elder was even more powerful. Junior Martial Brother Shoujing, Junior Martial Sister Qingwei, Lord Daoist Xianin said. They didn't expect their names to be called first, so they immediately answered, "Yes, Senior Martial Brother." Lord Daoist Xianin looked at them and said, "Master sent me a message. When you've rested enough, go to Kuanzhong City to replace Senior Martial Brother Huayan and Junior Martial Brother Lingxi." Qin Shi nodded. "Got it." Lord Daoist Xianin said gently, "Master said you've had enough of a carefree life before, so you must work hard now. It hasn't been long since you formed your nascent souls, so it's time for you to gain experience. Don't complain about the hard work." The 2 of them nodded. Miaoi looked at them and smiled. "You'd better hand over your tasks to your disciples. Senior Martial Brother Jinghe said this time, he'll let you gain experience well." Lord Daoist Miaoi emphasized the word well. Since Lord Daoist Jinghe said that, he most likely didn't want them to come back in the near future. The 2 of them didn't have any objections. They indeed hadn't worked for the sect for a long time. Besides, it hadn't been long since they made realm breakthroughs, so they didn't need to enter closed-door meditation for the time being. Lord Daoist Xianin got down to business. "I called you here because I have something to tell you." The other 4 people's gazes fell on him and they listened attentively. Lord Daoist Xianin didn't keep them in suspense. He simply said, "Beast cultivators have been discovered in the Eastern Sea." The Eastern Sea. Mo Chenga lowered her head. She suddenly thought of something and her expression changed greatly. "Where's the Eastern Sea?" Lord Daoist Xianin didn't answer directly. He said, "Kunwu and the Eastern Sea aren't directly connected, and there's also Demonic Mountain between them. Beast cultivators can't threaten us for the time being. However, there's a Dao cultivation group on the shore of the Eastern Sea that's facing attacks from demonic beasts." Mo Chinga looked at Lord Daoist Xianin and asked, Bishuan Court? Lord Daoist Xianin nodded. Yes, it's Bishuan Court. Junior Marshal Sister Qingwei, why do you look so unsightly? Mo Chinga took a deep breath and said, I'm old friends with Bishuan Court. I once accepted Bishuan Court's offerings and was their guest elder. Lord Daoist Xuanin's expression turned solemn. Senior Marshal Brother Xianin, how's Bishuan Court now? Seeing that she was a bit nervous, Lord Daoist Xianin comforted her. Don't worry too much. Bishuan Court didn't suffer many casualties. Mo Chinga's expression relaxed slightly. She nodded and said, That's good. Senior Marshal Brother Xianin, what's going on? Let me explain. Lord Daoist Miaoi took over the conversation. About a month ago, several cultivators appeared in the transporting formation Bishuan Court set up in Kunwu. All of them were injured. As soon as they arrived in Kunwu, they went to Tiandao sect. Tiandao sect's Fairy Fengqing asked for the reason and sent a message to Kuanzhong City. Bishuan Court's people said a large number of demonic beasts suddenly appeared in the Eastern Sea. They seemed to be driven by beast cultivators and attacked Bishuan Court with a purpose. They couldn't resist, so they sent people to Kunwu to send a message. The Doyen Council heard about this and ordered Fairy Fengqing to investigate. Once Fairy Fengqing went, she realized the severity of the matter. There were countless demonic beasts in the Eastern Sea attacking Linhai town. Bishuan Court had a great mountain protecting formation, so their losses weren't serious. However, those mortals almost all suffered. After Fairy Fengqing killed those demonic beasts, she chased after them and found that some beast cultivators built a city on the water on the Eastern Sea island. What? Mo Chinga and Qin Shi were extremely shocked. Demon City? Did those beast cultivators want to attack Kunwu? Lord Daoist Miaoi continued, in the Demon City Fairy Fengqing found traces of beast cultivators. This matter wasn't something she could handle alone, so she reported it to Kuanzhong City. According to the information Fairy Fengqing sent back, the Doyen Council decided to send a group of cultivators to the Eastern Sea to keep watch. In case the beast cultivators really covet Kunwu, they'll stop them at the shore of the Eastern Sea. Qin Shi said, We're fighting on two sides now. If we still need people to keep watch in the Eastern Sea, will there be enough manpower? That's why we have to invest more manpower. Lord Daoist Xianin sighed. After the two of you go, I'm afraid Senior Marshal Sister Miaoi and I will also have to go. Only 2 people can stay in the sect to take turns. Moreover, core formation and foundation building disciples also have to fight. Lord Daoist Miaoi looked at Luo Fengxue. Fengxue, there's no time for you to slowly adapt to your responsibilities as the sect head. You have to think of a way to prepare enough supplies for the disciples to fight. Yes, Luo Fengxue said solemnly, disciple will definitely do her best. Chapter 569. After returning to their cave, they summoned Yi Jinji and Shui Linbo. Anti-Master. Yi Jinji came in first. Greetings, Grand Masters. Shui Linbo saluted them respectfully. Mo Chinga looked at her with a smile and said, I've sent a message to the Steward's Hall to accept you as a registered disciple. From now on, you can just call us like Jinji. Shui Linbo was stunned, but her eyes were filled with great surprise. She hurriedly kowtowed. Thank you for your kindness, Grand Masters. Previously, although she took care of their immortals' caves, she was still an ordinary foundation-building disciple of Clear Spring Peak in name. It was only because of her relationship with Yi Jinji that she obtained the opportunity to serve the 2 Grandmasters and also their support. In Xianqing School, many foundation-building disciples were jealous of her and even gossiped behind her back because she didn't have a status but got something she shouldn't have. But now, as a registered disciple of a nascent soul cultivator, she finally got the identity she dreamed of, and no one questioned her identity and status anymore. You've taken good care of the cave. This is your reward. Over the years, Shui Linbo had almost never entered closed-door meditation. She conscientiously took care of the cave and handled chores for them. They weren't stingy people. Giving her the status of a registered disciple was a piece of cake for them. Yes, Shui Linbo said gratefully, Linbo will do her best to do things for Grandmaster. I told you, you don't have to call me Grandmaster anymore. Shui Linbo hesitated for a moment and said, Anti-Master. Mo Chinga nodded with a smile and turned to Qin Shi. Do you want to say it? Qin Shi nodded and said, I have something to tell you. You have to be prepared. Yi Jinji and Shui Linbo stood respectfully in front of him and said, The current situation is critical. Soon the 2 of us will leave the mountain. Jinji, you've reached the peak stage of the foundation building realm, and it's time to prepare for the core formation realm. You'd better go out to gain experience. Only when your mental state is strong enough can you prepare to form your core formation realm. Yes, master, Yi Jinji answered without hesitation. Qin smiled and said, let me make it clear to you first. You're going out to gain experience, not with us. Yi Jinji was stunned. Master, what do you mean? It means that you can't go the same way as us. You have to rely on your own strength to survive the battle and find an opportunity to form your gold core. Really? Yi Jinji wasn't worried at all. Instead, he was eager to try. Then where should I go? South? Or Tiandao sect? We'll talk about this later. Qin turned his gaze to Shui Linbo, who was deep in thought. Linbo, what do you think? Shui Linbo hesitated for a moment and said, Master, I also want to go and gain experience. Qin said, ever since you entered the school, you've never left the school, so it's only natural for you to go and gain experience. Cultivation isn't like cultivating behind closed doors. Without experience, you can't cultivate your mental state. If your mental state isn't strong enough, it will be difficult for you to advance. If you want to reach core formation, you really do need some experience. But, at this point his tone changed. Shui Linbo looked up nervously, but Qin said, you can go, but not with Jinji. Shui Linbo was taken aback. Why? Mo Chenga said, you have more ideas than Jinji. If you go together, Jinji won't have enough experience, so it's better if you go separately. Shui Linbo turned her head and glanced at Yi Jinji. Then she turned back and nodded firmly. Yes. She thought for a moment and said, but about the cave, it's okay, Qin said, let the steward's hall send someone. You just need to sort out the affairs of the cave and hand them over to them. Yes, master. Then Qin dismissed the two of them and said, we should also get ready. According to senior marshal brother Xianin, their trip might take several years or even more than 10 years, so they had to be prepared. Mo Chenga got up and suddenly felt something. She touched the space between her eyebrows and entered the virtual sky world. The white tiger's breath that filled the whole virtual sky world had disappeared and was replaced by a thick and sharp breath. Mo Chenga was delighted. She walked to the front of the spiritual beast house and called, Feifei? There was no answer for a long time, but Feifei's breath was clearly in the spiritual beast house. Was it still absorbing the white tiger's breath? When Qin absorbed the vermilion bird's breath, it took him a long time. Maybe it was the same for Feifei. She turned around and was about to go back to the cultivation room when she suddenly heard a soft squeak behind her. The door opened. Feifei? She looked happy and turned around. But the next moment she was stunned. How is it? A clear and pleasant voice came, carrying Feifei's unique laziness and arrogance. But, why is there a person standing in front of me? Mo Chenga pointed ahead in a daze. You, I what? Mo Chenga blinked several times before she was sure what she saw was real and that she wasn't hallucinating. Standing at the door of the spiritual beast house wasn't the golden-furred Feifei, but a yellow-clothed teenager. The teenager was thin, handsome, and dressed in yellow clothes, which made him look as white as snow. At this moment, he was leaning against the door lazily with his arms crossed. At first glance, it was hard to tell whether he was a man or a woman. Mo Chenga stared at him for a long time, but the first thing she said was, What? You're not a female? The teenager was stunned. His fair face suddenly turned red and he pointed at her. You don't even know whether I'm male or female. I'm not a Feifei. How could I tell whether you're male or female? The teenager almost couldn't breathe. He'd been with her for more than 100 years, but he didn't even know whether she was male or female. What kind of master is this? Mo Chenga continued, You love beauty and have a proud temperament, so I naturally thought you were female. Nonsense. The teenager said angrily, You humans love beauty, but we spiritual beasts love beauty. If you don't love beauty, how can you attract females to mate with you? Feifei, you're so direct. Do you want to find a female Feifei to mate with? As soon as this sentence came out, the topic was twisted. A quarter of an hour later, the two of them sat opposite each other in the cultivation room. This time it was really two people, not one human and one beast. Next to the coffee table, on the small stove, the water bubbled. The teenager, who was Feifei after its transformation, lifted the teapot and slowly made tea. When it was still in its beast form, it could make tea. Now that it had transformed into its human form, its movements were even more familiar and elegant. The fragrance of tea slowly spread. Feifei picked up the teacup, put it in front of its nose and smelled the fragrance. It showed a satisfied and intoxicated expression. I say. Emo Chenga coughed softly. Do you want to tell me what's going on first? What's going on? Fei Fei, who was focused on tasting the tea, answered carelessly. Of course it's about your transformation. Emo Chenga stared at Fei Fei's face, trying to see a flower. You obviously haven't advanced to the 8th rank, so how can you transform? Before the 8th rank, demonic beasts were only demonic beasts no matter how strong they were. They couldn't transform into humans unless they advanced to the 8th rank. This was common sense. Emo Chenga had never heard of an exception. However, Fei Fei in front of her was obviously only in the 7th rank, but he succeeded in transforming. Moreover, there were no ears left, no fur left, and no traces of a demonic beast were left. To transform so thoroughly, it must be a 10th rank demonic beast, right? Fei Fei said, what's so strange about that? The 5 spirits can transform as soon as they are born. I absorbed White Tiger's breath and obtained White Tiger's bone to transform my body, so I have a part of White Tiger's bloodline. Of course I can transform. I see. Emo Chenga thought for a moment, then asked, White Tiger's breath is so strong, so why didn't you advance to the 8th rank? How can it be that easy for spiritual beasts to advance? Fei Fei said, for spiritual beasts, transformation in the 8th rank is like a natural moat. Before the 8th rank, no matter how strong they are still ignorant beasts. Once they advance to the 8th rank, they will gain spiritual wisdom and become the spirit of all living things. This kind of heaven-defying matter can only be obtained through great fated chances. Xiaofan's ancestor lived for 5,000 or 6,000 years, but he still couldn't advance to the 8th rank. Compared to humans, we spiritual beasts have a much longer lifespan, and reproduction is also easy, so we can give birth to 8th rank spiritual beasts that are no less than human nascent soul cultivators. Is that so? That means it won't be easy for you to advance to the 8th rank. That's not true. The corners of Fei Fei's lips rose slightly. Coupled with his beautiful appearance, he could really be called a flower and the moon. Some time ago, I ate a lot of blood-eating vines, and with White Tiger's power, it's only a matter of time for me to advance to the 8th rank. After drinking a cup of tea, he glanced at her. What's with your expression? Emo Chenga said, it's also a matter of time for Xiaofan and Xiaohua to advance to the 8th rank. They lived in the virtual sky world and had countless spiritual plants, so it was hard for them not to advance to the 8th rank. Fei Fei curled his lips and didn't answer. Speaking of cultivation, it really wasn't his strong suit. If it hadn't happened to meet White Tiger, it would have taken a long time to advance to the 7th rank. Emo Chenga couldn't help but laugh when she saw its expression. Fei Fei, this guy was hateful, but it had one good point, it never lied. Xiaohua and Xiaofan were stronger than it in terms of cultivation. Although it was unwilling, it had to admit it. By the way, Emo Chenga said seriously, after you absorbed White Tiger's breath, did your body change? Fei Fei raised its head. What do you mean? She said, I know the Fei Fei clan doesn't have the means to fight. It's only their innate talent that allows them to coexist peacefully with all demonic beasts. But White Tiger is known as the Fiend God. It's violent and murderous, and it's very strong. Now that you have the White Tiger's bloodline, have you learned any innate magic? Fei Fei chuckled but didn't answer. It leisurely drank a cup of tea, then waved its hand. A golden light flew out of its sleeve and deftly circled around, causing the bamboo forest in front of them to collapse with a loud bang. Xiaohua and Xiaofan, who were cultivating, were startled. Emo Chenga was also startled. These bamboos had lived here for tens of thousands of years, so they were hard and extraordinary. Fei Fei just waved its hand lightly, yet it raised a bamboo forest to the ground. Even ordinary core formation cultivators couldn't compare to this kind of strength. The golden light leaped back. Fei Fei opened its hand and grabbed it. This flowing golden light then turned into a slender blade in its palm. Just by approaching it, Emo Chenga could already feel the ruthless aura from the blade of light. It was as if countless saber lights and sword shadows were gathered together and filled the air with a murderous aura. Fei Fei said complacently, this move is called White Tiger Strike. Once I advance to the 8th rank, ordinary cultivators won't be able to withstand this strike of mine. Chapter 570. With Fei Fei as an example, Emo Chenga specially summoned Xiaohua and Xiaofan to inquire about whether they were male or female. In the end, Xiaofan was male but Xiaohua was female. Emo Chenga felt dizzy. Xiaofan's voice was that of a teenager whose voice hadn't changed. It didn't matter whether it was male or female. It was obedient and pampered, so she always treated it as a little girl. As for Xiaohua, although it was also quite cute, it was the most masculine among the three spiritual beasts. Mo Chenga didn't expect it to be female. In this world, male or female couldn't be judged on the surface. Mo Chenga sighed and flew out of the virtual sky world with Feifei. She was thinking about how to refine the 3-yang real fire sword with the Shen Fire Jade essence when he suddenly saw Mo Chenga appear in front of him with a handsome teenager. Seeing his appearance, Mo Chenga burst into laughter. What? You don't recognize me? She regained his composure. He stared at Feifei for a long time and said in astonishment, "It's only in the 7th rank. How could it transform?" "Of course my spiritual beast is extraordinary," Mo Chenga said proudly and found a place to sit. Feifei didn't greet him and just stood there. It never liked Qin, so it naturally wouldn't take the initiative to greet him. Qin didn't care about such a trivial matter. He looked up and down and said, "Why isn't it female?" When Feifei heard this, it suddenly jumped up and glared at him as if its tail was stepped on. "You're female. Your whole family is female." She calmly glanced at it and said to Mo Chenga, "If it changes into women's clothes, it'll definitely be as beautiful as a flower. When we encounter beast cultivators, just send it out. It'll save you a lot of trouble." Feifei's face suddenly turned red. It pointed at him and jumped violently. You, Mo Chenga turned her head and smiled. Although Qin was a man of few words, he could make people die of anger when he spoke at a critical moment. Jing Xingji was bullied like this. Every time he talked to him, he wanted to bite off a piece of flesh. Now Feifei also became a victim. Qin still looked indifferent and looked like he was ready to bite if it wasn't convinced. After Feifei jumped, it couldn't do anything to him, so it could only glare at him hatefully and pick a place to sit. Once Mo Chenga was done laughing, she explained to him, "Feifei absorbed White Tiger's breath, so it was able to transform. I'm thinking that if your bright bird can absorb a portion of the vermilion bird's aura, it will definitely be able to advance faster." Oh. Qin swept a glance at Feifei and discovered that its spiritual aura was thick and heavy. Although it was sharp, it didn't have any ruthless aura. He then asked, "Absorbing White Tiger's breath isn't that easy, right? Neither of us can make the White Tiger's aura recognize us as its master. That's a problem." Mo Chenga raised her voice. "Feifei, what do you think?" Feifei turned her head and ignored him. "If you can absorb the vermilion bird's aura, Xiaohua can also transform." You really won't tell me?" Why don't I change a place for you to stay? The spirit beast bracelet is not bad." Feifei jumped up and glared at her. "You value sex over beasts." Mo Chenga waved her hand to fan herself and said, "It's more like you're a pervert. He's not as handsome as you." Feifei was speechless. In terms of appearance, Qin wasn't bad, but he obviously hadn't reached the point where he couldn't distinguish between a man and a woman. If Feifei put on rouge and changed into women's clothes, it would definitely be a handsome young lady. "Will it work or not?" Feifei said reluctantly, "It shouldn't be a big problem. Spiritual beasts are much closer to divine beasts' breaths than you humans are. However, who would give a divine beast's breath to a spiritual beast? Humans were the wisest of all living things, but they had too many bad habits. They only subdued spiritual beasts for themselves and rarely spent resources on spiritual beasts." Fine, it admitted its luck was good. Although this master always ignored it, she was never stingy and wouldn't treat it as a servant. "Then what should I do?" "It's very simple." Feifei made a hand seal with its right hand and gathered White Tiger's breath. It then pointed at the center of its right palm, causing White Tiger's breath to rush out and gradually condense into a dazzling golden bead. It waved its hand and threw the golden bead to Mo Chenga. "Take this and you'll be fine." This golden bead was formed purely from White Tiger's breath. It emitted a golden light and contained a huge amount of energy. However, the White Tiger's breath subdued by Feifei was different from the original White Tiger's breath. Its ruthless aura was almost completely dissolved. Feifei said proudly, "I've refined this White Tiger's breath, so its ruthless aura no longer exists. Ordinary gold attribute spiritual beasts can also use it." Qin imitated its technique and sure enough, a fire bead formed from vermilion bird's breath was condensed. This fire bead contained fervent vitality, but it didn't have the ruthless aura of vermilion bird's breath. Feifei looked at the fire bead and said, "If one bead isn't enough, you can always make a breakthrough after eating 100 beads, right?" 100 beads. Qin reckoned the vermilion bird's breath he refined would only be able to condense into about 100 beads. Feifei's tone was really big. Of course, if he really planned to feed it to spiritual beasts, it wouldn't be a big deal. After the vermilion bird's breath was used up, he could continue refining it from the yang spiritual bead. It would just take some time. Qin thought for a moment and made a decision. In the next few days I'll condense all the vermilion bird's breath into a fire bead. Spiritual beasts advancing will also help us. Mo Chenga nodded. Qin's bright bird was already in the peak of the 7th rank. If it could advance, it would be an 8th rank spiritual beast, equivalent to the early stage of the nascent soul realm. With the help of an early stage nascent soul spiritual beast, its strength would greatly improve. Old Donkey Ma, the individual cultivator in Yunzhong, was able to suppress those late-stage nascent soul cultivators because he had an 8th rank spiritual beast. As for herself, Xiaofan was in the 6th rank, Xiaohua would make a breakthrough soon, and Feifei had just reached the 7th rank, so she couldn't count on it for the time being. However, she had a nascent soul puppet, so she wouldn't be too far behind. As for the fire bead, it was good to prepare it first. Once Xiaohua made a breakthrough, its strength would rise again. After Qin made his decision, he returned to the closed-door meditation room to condense the fire bead. Mo Chenga asked for his Chengkuan ring and her own, planning to sort it out. As for Feifei, Mo Chenga gave it her identity Jade tablet and told it to go to the steward's hall to ask for a set of sect clothes. Later, no one would question it when it appeared in the sect. The three of them went about their own business. In the cultivation room, Mo Chenga casually opened Qin's Chengkuan ring and poured out a pile of things. The pile directly took up more than half of the stone room, including many Chengkuan bags. Looking at the pile of things, Mo Chenga muttered to herself after a long time, "This guy turns out to be so rich?" She always thought she was rich enough, but she didn't expect Qin to have more than her. Now that she thought about it carefully, it didn't seem strange at all. Before she existed, he was already a core formation cultivator and he liked to go to dangerous places. When he was building his foundation, he and Jing Xingji discovered the ruins of an ancient sect. After he formed his gold core, he went to Demonic Mountain, and countless cultivators died in his hands. Coupled with the sect's offerings and the gifts from Lord Taoist Jinghe, his accumulation was much higher than his cultivation consumption. Living more than 100 years longer than her, he really didn't live in vain. Qin had already sorted out the important things and put them away. Mo Chenga looked at them and put away several marked Chengkuan bags first. Then she poured out all kinds of things in the Chengkuan bags, including high-grade magic weapons, rare materials, high-grade panaceas, high-grade spirit stones, and other valuable things into her Chengkuan ring. Then she opened her own Chengkuan ring and did the same. After doing this, she called Shui Linbo with a voice transmission. As soon as Shui Linbo came in, she was almost blinded by the light. However, she only took a glance and said respectfully, "Auntie, what can I do for you?" Mo Chenga pointed to the things that occupied half of the cultivation room and said, "Open a stone room, sort these things and put them away." Yes. Without hesitation, Shui Linbo put these things into the Chengkuan bag and went to open a stone room. The location of Qin's immortal's cave was remote. The exit was on an uninhabited hilltop, and a stone path was opened inside the immortal's cave, leading to a canyon on Clear Spring Peak. This canyon was extremely deep, surrounded by cliffs and uninhabited. Mountains and rivers fell around it, forming a waterfall that washed the bottom of the canyon into a deep pool called the Extreme Abyss Pool. Because of its special location, this pool was extremely cold. Huge chunks of ice floated on the surface of the water and didn't melt all year round, just like the northernmost land. After Shui Linbo arrived, she rearranged the exit leading to the Extreme Abyss Pool and built a wooden cloister next to the Extreme Abyss Pool, which was a good place to view the scenery. Shui Linbo was born by the sea and liked water by nature. She also chose a water attribute cultivation technique, so she usually cultivated in the wooden house. After receiving Mo Chenga's order, she opened several stone rooms near the Extreme Abyss Pool as a collection room. After doing all this, Shui Linbo came back to report to Mo Chenga. Mo Chenga went to take a look and was very satisfied. She set up formations and restrictions in each collection room and closed the collection room. If there were no accidents, the four of them would all leave the mountain, so it was inconvenient to hand over the collection room to others. After doing this, news finally came from Kuanzhong City. After summoning the two of them to Blue Phoenix Peak, Lord Taoist Miaoi went straight to the point. Senior Marshal Brother Xinjiang sent a message. The two of you will go to Kuanzhong City to replace Senior Marshal Brother Huayan and Junior Marshal Brother Lingxi. You'll leave in half a month. Senior Marshal Sister Miaoi, What's the current situation? Qin Shi asked when he saw her frown. Lord Taoist Miaoi said, Quanzhong City is fine, but Demonic Mountain suffered a small loss. The most important thing is the Eastern Sea. We can't transfer people there right now, so Fairy Fengqing is in charge for the time being. She said, if I'm not mistaken, you'll most likely be transferred to the Eastern Sea if you go to Quanzhong City. Mo Chenga nodded. It would be best if they really went to the Eastern Sea. As a guest elder of Bichuan Court, she knew Bichuan Court was in trouble, so she should go and take a look. In addition, you'll take 6 core formation cultivators and 100 foundation building disciples with you. Miaoi paused and said, my disciple Fei Shuang will also go with you. If you have time, please take care of her. Mo Chenga was stunned. The Fei Shuang Lord Taoist Miaoi mentioned was Wu Fei Shuang, Bai Yanfei's Tao companion, senior martial sister Wu. After marrying Bai Yanfei, she hadn't left the mountain for 100 years. Miaoi sighed and smiled bitterly. She's 200 years old. She can't afford to delay any longer. Mo Chenga understood what Lord Taoist Miaoi was implying. Bai Yanfei was Lord Taoist Jinyang's disciple and had a single spiritual root, so the possibility of him advancing to the nascent soul realm was very high. As his Tao companion, how could Wu Fei Shuang not even reach the core formation realm? Unfortunately, this senior martial sister Wu was willing to be a virtuous wife, so Lord Taoist Miaoi worried a lot about this disciple of hers. This time, Lord Taoist Miaoi probably made up her mind. Otherwise, if she grew older and reached 300 years old, the possibility of her advancing to the core formation realm would be very low. At that time, what status would she have in Bai Yanfei's heart? Mo Chenga said, rest assured, senior martial sister. Just leave it to us. Chapter 571. Half a month later, Mo Chenga, Qin Shi, and a group of disciples left Mount Taikang. There were 6 core formation cultivators in the group, 1 from each of the 6 peaks. Among them, 5 were familiar faces. Morning Sun Peaks Bai Yanfei's Taoist title was Zhifei. Clear Spring Peaks Yi Jingwen's Taoist title was Chongyun. Sweet Dew Peaks Han Qingyu's Taoist title was Yunyu. Drifting Cloud Peaks Jiang Min's Taoist title was Wu Hua. Soul's Retreat Peaks Kuangzhu's Taoist title was Han Qi. When these people met, they were all foundation establishment cultivators. In the blink of an eye, they were all core formation cultivators. Among the 5 of them, the oldest was Han Qingyu, who was more than 280 years old, while the youngest, Jiang Min and Bai Yanfei, were more than 180 years old. This group of core formation cultivators was astonishingly young. This meant that Xianqing School's core formation cultivators had been successfully replaced. From now on, this group of people would be the mainstay of Xianqing School. More than 100 people boarded the treasured flying ship and flew toward Quanzhong City. The flying boat was a flying magic treasure of the sect. It looked like a small boat from the outside, but it could accommodate 1,000 people inside. It was controlled by a high-grade cultivator, and it was much faster and safer than a low-grade cultivator flying on their own. The 6 core formation realm cultivators boarded the ship and stepped forward to greet him. Green Phoenix Peaks Chao Feng was Lord Taoist Miaoi's disciple, but he was only about 300 years old. Among core formation cultivators, he could be considered young. However, aside from Qin Shi, who was about the same age as him, everyone else was younger than him. After Chao Feng, Kuangzhu stepped forward and clasped his hands in greeting. He said faintly, "Greetings, martial uncles." Mo Chenga knew he had a cold temperament. It wasn't because he had a problem with them, so she smiled back at him. She really wanted to call him senior brother Kuangzhu, but she was already a nascent soul Tao Lord. She couldn't be so indifferent. Martial Uncle Shoujing, Martial Uncle Qingwei. Jiang Min stepped forward to greet Mo Chenga. Her expression was cold, but when she looked at Mo Chenga, a fleeting smile appeared on her face. Mo Chenga couldn't help but sigh inwardly as she recalled that spoiled and lively junior martial sister Jiang from more than 100 years ago. Martial Uncle Shoujing, Martial Uncle Qingwei. Han Qingyu walked towards them with a smile. She was still as steady and kind as before. She was the impeccable eldest senior sister. Regardless of the time, she would always behave appropriately, gently, and amiably. Yi Jingwen didn't step forward, but he smiled brilliantly and cupped his hands towards them. The 5 of them had already greeted each other. Bai Yanfei, who was not far away, had a conflicted look on his face, hesitating whether he should step forward or not. After that farce, Lord Taoist Jinyang ordered him to go into closed-door meditation and never went to Clear Spring Peak again. Several dozen years later, when a storm raged on Clear Spring Peak and a shocking core formation celestial phenomenon appeared, he finally knew Senior Marshal Sister Mo had formed her gold core. He thought his innate talent was outstanding, so he was proud and complacent in front of her. It was only later that he discovered this Senior Marshal Sister Mo had better qualifications than him, and she also had a tougher willpower than him. She was ahead of him in both the foundation building and core formation realms. She was like the most perfect part of the stage. She made him gray and pale and hideous. After witnessing her forming her gold core, he finally understood his position. Even if he had a single spiritual root that was hard to come by in 100 years, he would only be able to take a few more steps than others on the immortal path. This couldn't allow him to look down on all living beings, nor could it allow him to reach the heavens in a single bound. 50 years later he finally formed his gold core. However, compared to his aptitude, this achievement was barely satisfactory. Compared to the three most outstanding disciples of Shenqing school, it was simply nothing. He often recalled that year on that uninhabited mountaintop, where he boasted that if he was given 100 years, he would definitely trample Qin Shoujing under his feet. In the end, he only entered the gold core formation realm when he was 130 years old. Compared to Qin Shoujing, who was 78 years old, he was almost half as old. When he formed his gold core, Qin Shoujing was already in the nascent soul realm. Now he was only in the middle stage of the core formation realm, but Senior Marshal Sister Mo, who was only a few years older than him, had already formed her nascent soul. He couldn't help but have deep doubts about himself. Was this path really suitable for him? Why was Qin Shoujing, who had double spiritual roots, able to leave him in the dust? But now these two people were standing in front of him and he had to greet them as a junior. After struggling for a long time, he finally stepped forward. Jifei greets martial uncles. His elders were right in front of him, but he turned a blind eye to them. Such rude behavior wouldn't let him vent his anger. It would only make him lose his moral character. Jifei. He remembered when his master bestowed him the title. He said to him, "You're talented and have a noble background, so your character is arrogant and you don't care about worldly matters. You must know that talent wasn't the only thing in front of the great Tao, and background was even more useless." Having a single spiritual root was a gift from heaven, but having a single spiritual root didn't mean having a smooth path. From now on, I hope you reflect on yourself 3 times a day and learn from your mistakes. He knew what his master said was right, but he always felt it was unfair in his heart. Facing him, they still only smiled and nodded. They didn't mock him or pay much attention to him, as if he was just a very ordinary core formation junior in the sect. Bai Yanfei suppressed the disappointment in his heart and retreated to the side. Even if they put on airs as nascent soul Lord Taoists in front of him, on this treasured ship he felt like he was sitting on pins and needles. Mo Chenga and Qin Shi made him feel like he didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth, and Jiang Min, who wasn't far from him, made him recall how childish and ridiculous he was in the past. Someone gently pulled his hand as if they wanted to comfort him, but he seemed to intentionally or unintentionally avoid them. That person's expression suddenly became gloomy. Riding on the flying ship, the group of people arrived at Kuanzhong City in 3 or 4 days. This wasn't even the fastest speed. Without this thing, it would take them at least half a month to travel with so many foundation building cultivators. A sect's magic weapon wasn't very useful to an individual, but it would come in handy when there were a lot of people. This was the accumulation of a sect. As soon as they approached Kuanzhong City, a flight light flashed in the city and stopped in front of the flying ship. "Which fellow Taoist from Shenqing school has arrived?" the person shouted. Mo Chenga and Qin Shi came out of the ship and saw the cultivator floating in front of the ship. It was an acquaintance of theirs, Feng Xiao from Biyun sect. Qin Shi raised his hand and said, "Fellow Taoist Feng. Turns out it's you two little friends." Feng Xiao looked at them with a smile. "Yes, we've been ordered to come and help. You came just in time. We're short of people right now." He pointed at the high platform in the north of Kuanzhong City. "The treasured ship is parked over there. Someone will receive you. You two follow me." Qin Shi turned around and gave Han Qingyu an order. Then he and Mo Chenga followed Feng Xiao into the city and landed in front of the Wanhe Pagoda. The 3 of them went to the 6th floor unimpeded. Compared with the gathering of nascent soul cultivators that day, there were only 7 or 8 nascent soul cultivators on the 6th floor today. However, all of them were figures from big sects and couldn't be compared to ordinary nascent soul cultivators. Among these people they saw Lord Taoist Jinyang. After greeting him, the 2 of them consciously stood next to Lord Taoist Jinyang. Lord Taoist Jinyang looked at them and asked with a smile, "Is the matter settled?" Mo Chenga knew what he was talking about, so she answered, "Yes, it's settled." "That's good." Hua Yin was injured and his spirituality realm is a bit unstable, so he needs to go back. "Since your matter is settled, stay for a few more years." "Yes," the two said respectfully. "Brother Taoist Jinyang," someone called out. The three of them finished talking and turned around. Lu Dingyuan from Tiandao sect was looking at them. Compared to 100 years ago, he seemed to be a few years older, and his devil aura was also leaking. Is his lifespan coming to an end? Mo Chenga guessed. "Oh, Brother Dingyuan." Lu Dingyuan looked at them with a kind smile and said to Lord Taoist Jinyang, "I really envy you. With such outstanding juniors, you don't have to worry about anything." Lord Taoist Jinyang chuckled. "Brother Dingyuan, you only see the benefits and don't see the difficulties. These little guys don't like to manage things, so I can't count on them. It seems I'll be busy until I die." Although he said it was the difficulties, his smile was extremely bright. Compared to Lu Dingyuan, his troubles were blissful, and it was just nice to discuss Lu Dingyuan. This old guy had been fighting with him for hundreds of years and was always suppressed by him. Now it was finally his turn to turn things around. Lu Dingyuan still smiled amiably and didn't look the least bit unnatural. As for whether he was as calm in his heart, no one knew. After laughing, Lu Dingyuan said, "I think we should send the two of them to guard East Sea. What do you think?" Lord Taoist Jinyang frowned. "Brother Dingyuan, just the two of them won't be enough, right? With the Luan and Feng immortal couple's precious daughter, there shouldn't be a problem." Feng Qing reported that there are no more than 5 8th rank or higher demonic cultivators in human form. Shoujing isn't an ordinary cultivator. Although he can't fight 5 alone, he can fight 3. Those demonic cultivators must be below the 8th rank, Lu Dingyuan immediately said. If there are demonic beasts above the 8th rank, Feng Qing won't be able to come back. Lord Taoist Jinyang didn't answer. He tapped the table with his knuckles, frowning and thinking. After a while he turned to ask them, "What do you think?" Qin Shi answered without hesitation, "If Fairy Fengqing's report is true, there shouldn't be a problem." Before Lord Taoist Jinyang could say anything, Lu Dingyuan already exclaimed in admiration, "Young people are really spirited." He then said to Lord Taoist Jinyang, "The Eastern Sea is close to Tiandao sect. If you're not strong enough, you can ask Feng Qing and Lu Dequan for help." Lord Taoist Jinyang didn't object anymore and said, "That depends on whether Luan and Feng are willing or not." Feng Shao was talking with Ding Luan. Hearing this, he turned his head and said, "Old man Lu, my Fengning doesn't have any ability. She only managed to reach Yuanying realm by relying on us. If you want to rely on her to succeed, you can't. Fellow Taoist Feng, you're too modest." Lu Dingyuan glanced at him. "If your Fengning isn't capable, the nascent soul cultivators in our celestial pole can't be relied on." "Fellow Taoist Lu, you think too highly of my Fengning," Ding Luan said with a smile. "She is just lucky and has never suffered a loss. We can't guarantee whether she can be relied on at the critical moment." All right. When have you two ever boasted about yourselves? I've heard you talk about it so many times." Lu Dingyuan waved his hand. "At first, you said that Fengning's aptitude wasn't good, and then you said that it was good enough for her to form her gold core. When she formed her nascent soul, you said it was a coincidence. If it was really so coincidental, wouldn't there be nascent soul cultivators everywhere in the celestial pole?" Ding Wan Feng Shao smiled and said nothing. "You two should just say something. Are you willing to let Fengning go with you?" Ding Wan muttered, "That's fine. It'll be good for her to see real young talents." She then shifted her gaze towards Mo Tienga and Qin Shi. Chapter 572. What's Lu Dingyuan planning? Mo Tienga asked in private. Qin Shi curled his lips into a smile. He's borrowing power. Tiandao sect is on Demonic Mountain, close to the Eastern Sea. Now that we're fighting against the Devil Path, Tiandao sect is on the front line. If the beast cultivators in the Eastern Sea break through the natural defense line of Demonic Mountain and run to Kunwu, Tiandao sect will be attacked from both sides. Tiandao sect is now stronger than us. If they're besieged by the Devil Path and beast cultivators, their low-level disciples will suffer great losses. At that time, they might not even be able to protect their sect's foundation. Mo Chenga nodded. Fortunately, our sect is in West Kunwu. Whether it's the beast cultivators or the Devil Path, they won't directly attack our sect. You're right, but in times of peace, Tiandao sect's disciples often grow faster than us. This was how Xianqing School became second place for 10,000 years. Although Xianqing School's disciples also went to the forest in the south to gain experience, they lacked a sense of crisis compared to Tiandao sect, which was next to Demonic Mountain, so it wasn't easy for them to grow. Now, Xianqing School rose not only because it happened to have so many talented disciples, but also because Tiandao sect lost a lot of disciples during this special period and had no successors. Qin continued, "The reason why we're going with Feng Ning is because the three of us have extraordinary positions in the sect. To boast, Xianqing School's future is mostly on us. Senior Marshal Brother Xinjiang will never let anything happen to us. As for Feng Ning, she's the precious daughter of the Wan and Feng immortal couple. Her parents will definitely be well prepared if she's sent. That way he won't have to worry about the Eastern Sea. You're also confident in your strength, right?" Emo Chenga smiled at him. Qin chuckled. "Alright, I won't be ashamed to say it. First, a middle-stage cultivator could fight against several early-stage cultivators. Second, the matter of him crossing the Southern Sea by force was spread after he returned. Moreover, the Celestial Pole had dealings with Yunzhong. In Yunzhong he easily killed Mei Feng and dealt with several big forces, so his fierce reputation spread back to the Celestial Pole. They didn't rest for long in Kuinzhong City before setting off for the Eastern Sea. Among the 6 core formation cultivators they brought with them, Lord Daoist Jinyang asked Bai Yanfei to go with them. Mo Qianga, on the other hand, took the initiative to ask Kuang Zhu. This senior martial brother's medical skills were excellent. With him by their side, the number of casualties would be greatly reduced. Among the Foundation establishment cultivators, Wu Feishuang had already decided to follow them. Shui Linbua also wanted to return to the East Sea, which was her hometown. As for Yi Jinji, he stayed in Kuinzhong City to fight against the beast cultivators. Several days later, 10 core formation cultivators and 300 foundation building disciples from various sects boarded the flying ship and headed for the Eastern Sea. When they boarded the ship, they finally saw the precious daughter of the Wan and Phoenix immortal couple, Feng Ning. Ding Wan and Feng Xiao always said that Feng Ning was spoiled, unruly, had poor aptitude, bad temper and unstable temperament. In short, she was full of shortcomings. It wasn't until she saw Feng Ning that Mo Chenga realized this couple was purely lying through their teeth. Feng Ning was extremely beautiful, 50% resembling Ding Wan and 30% resembling Feng Xiao. These two were like a perfect couple, so of course their daughter couldn't be any worse. As soon as she boarded the ship, she politely greeted Qin. She then stood quietly on the side. Although she was a bit cold, she wasn't rude at all. Mo Chenga said through voice transmission, "This Miss Feng doesn't look like a spoiled and unruly young lady. Wan and Feng aren't telling the truth." Qin smiled and said, "They're being sarcastic. They say things about their daughter, but in fact they spoil her so much that they can't tell right from wrong. In Biyun sect, she's the real Empress Dowager. Whatever she says, the couple will definitely do it. If she says the sun rises in the west, they won't say it rises in the east." Mo Chenga secretly glanced at Feng Ning and said, "Even with such a doting method, this Miss Feng isn't spoiled rotten." "How do you know she's not spoiled rotten?" "In front of outsiders she's quite well behaved, but in front of her parents she does a lot of unreasonable things." Mo Chenga stared at him. "You know so much. Are you very familiar with them?" Qin paused and said, "Master and Wan and Feng are friends and I've seen Feng Ning several times. I heard these things from Master. He wouldn't say that Ding Wan once wanted to marry Feng Ning to him. Although it was a joke, that couple might have the same idea. However, at that time he only had cultivation in his heart, so he kept a respectful distance from Feng Ning's spoiled ways. Until Lord Daoist Jinghe said he had someone else in his heart on Demonic Mountain, Ding Wan never made such a joke again. No matter how outstanding he was, Feng Ning was the beloved daughter of the Wan and Feng immortal couple. She was also very beautiful, so there were many people who liked her. Among them, there was no lack of talented and good-looking cultivators with extraordinary backgrounds. Although Ding Wan also felt a bit regretful when he was in the nascent soul realm, if she made a move earlier, Mo Chenga wouldn't have had any chance. Qin made up his mind not to say a word about these things. He originally didn't have any ideas about Feng Ning. If he said it, Mo Chenga would have something to use against him. If Mo Chenga took it out when she was unhappy, he would have to shut up. 2 days later, the flying boat arrived at the east of Kunwu. The two of them stood at the bow, watching the forest under their feet slowly receding. Suddenly they saw 2 mountain peaks that were side by side. "There." Mo Chenga stared at that place with a complicated look. Qin swept his gaze over and said softly, Yunwu sect. She hadn't been here since she left Yunwu sect when she was in the aura refining realm. After 170 years, Mount Yunwu must have changed beyond recognition. The former disciples who didn't die probably all became foundation-building cultivators. They might have heard of Qin Shoujing and Mo Qingwei's names, but they would never imagine that they were once ordinary disciples of Yunwu sect. Mo Qingge remembered Wang Qianyi and Xin Bing she met on Demonic Mountain and said, "I wonder if anyone formed their gold core?" As for nascent soul cultivators, there was no need to think about it. All nascent soul cultivators in the Celestial Pole had been to Kuanzhong City. During the few days they were in Kuanzhong City, they never heard of any nascent soul cultivators from Yunwu sect. Presumably, after that nascent soul elder of Zixia sect passed away, no one from the three cultivation groups advanced to the nascent soul realm, right? Those old friends of Yunwu sect all had ordinary aptitudes. If they were in Shenqing school, they wouldn't be ranked at all. Even if they encountered great fated chances and could form their nascent souls, it would take at least 100 years. Yunwu sect gradually went far away. After a long time, Qin said, "I once asked the Steward's Hall about Yunwu sect. The Steward's Hall reported that 2 core formation cultivators from Jiang clan were seriously injured by me and haven't been able to recover. 100 years ago, they were killed by the former core formation elder of Yunwu sect. Jiang clan's cultivators were all slaughtered, leaving only some insignificant mortals who were expelled from Mount Yunwu. Although several of Yunwu sect's core formation elders were killed by Zixia sect, there were always some who escaped with their lives, and there were also some who endured the humiliation. Without Zixia sect, it was basically impossible for Jiang clan to control Yunwu sect." Mo Qingge sighed and said, "When they were arrogant and despotic, they never thought this day would come, right?" Qin smiled and said, "In addition, I have good news for you. Senior Marshal Brother Jiang formed his gold core and came back. Now he's a nominal guest elder of Yunwu sect." "He formed his gold core? Why didn't he send me a message?" Qin said, "Did you forget you disappeared in the Celestial Pole for almost 100 years? Senior Marshal Brother Jiang once sent me a message, but you weren't there at that time. As for now, I reckon he already knows you're back in the Celestial Pole. I just don't know if he's still willing to be friends with you." Mo Qingge thought about it but eventually shook her head. If it was someone else, they might have known she formed her nascent soul and deliberately tried to curry favor with her. But Jiang Shanghong wasn't necessarily the same. He was quite proud, so maybe he wouldn't look for her anymore. When she had time, she should go to Zhengfa sect and take a look. After passing Yunwu sect, they soon arrived at Demonic Mountain. This part of the mountain range went past Tiandao sect and went deep into the belly of Kunwu. Looking down from the sky, it looked like a claw coming at an angle and surrounding Tiandao sect. This was the remnant of Demonic Mountain, so the devil aura here wasn't strong. However, the airflow was turbulent and the aura was strange. Because Demonic Mountain was such a dangerous place, cultivators below the nascent soul realm couldn't cross it and could only rely on Bichuan Court's transporting formation to go to the Eastern Sea. Now that they had a flying boat and a nascent soul cultivator to oversee them, they could directly cross Demonic Mountain, which was a bit better than using a transporting formation because transporting formation cost a lot. Transporting hundreds of people would cost a lot. In fact, Yunzhong was still more convenient. Transporting formations were widespread, and the cost was also low. The level of formations in the Celestial Pole couldn't compare to Yunzhong's, and the number of transporting formations there was pitifully low. Well, she had Mo Yaoqing's notes, so she also knew about transporting formations in Yunzhong. When would she pass them on to the formation masters in the sect so that the Immortal Alliance could use spirit stones to build a transporting formation in the Celestial Pole? That would be much more convenient. After entering the boundary of Demonic Mountain, countless devil aura gales rushed towards the treasured ship. Qin had already activated the treasured ship's defensive formation. With a buzzing sound, a light barrier floated around the treasured ship. The devil aura gales hit the light barrier, but they didn't affect it in the slightest. This flying boat could be considered a top-grade magic weapon. Not only could it carry people, but it also had several formations that could be used for both offense and defense. After spending half a day, the treasure boat finally left the boundary of Demonic Mountain and saw the sea in the distance. Mo Qingge immediately saw Bichuan Court. The Great Protective Formation was still intact, and the sect didn't change much. As for Linhai Town, it had already become a wasteland. What a pity. Mo Qingge thought to herself. Linhai Town was breached and countless people died under the claws of demonic beasts. The hatred between demonic beasts and humans was monstrous and irreconcilable. After the treasure boat entered the Eastern Sea, a flight light flashed from Bichuan Court and stopped in front of them. She was dressed in red and her phoenix eyes were full of power. She was Tiandao sect's Fairy Fengqing. Fairy Fengqing's temper wasn't good, which could be seen from her face. So its fellow Taoist Shoujing, fellow Taoist Qingwei. Fairy Fengqing had met them once, so she recognized them. Moreover, she had long received a message from the Immortal Alliance. Mo Chenga greeted Qin Shi. Fellow Taoist Fengqing. Feng Ning also came out and greeted them faintly. Fellow Taoist Fengqing. Upon seeing Mo Chenga and Qin Shi, Fairy Fengqing's expression was already a bit unsightly. When she saw Feng Ning, her expression became even more unsightly. She didn't like Mo Chenga and Qin Shi because of Shenqing school. If they hadn't advanced to the nascent soul realm one after another, Tiandao sect wouldn't have been robbed of its title as the #1 cultivation group. She didn't like Feng Ning because of a past incident. Fengqing and Feng Ning sounded like sisters. In fact, Fairy Fengqing was from the same generation as Lord Taoist Miaoi, and she was 400 years older than them. She also didn't have any relationship with the Wan Feng immortal couple from Biyun sect. They only shared the same surname. In the past, before Feng Ning existed, Fairy Fengqing was also a famous beauty. Many people in Kunwu praised her for having the beauty of a phoenix and called her Phoenix Fairy. Later, the Wan Feng immortal couple gave birth to Feng Ning. Feng Ning's beauty was also quite famous among the younger generation of disciples. Fairy Fengqing was already several hundred years old, so she wouldn't be jealous of Feng Ning just because of this. However, there was one time when she heard someone talking about the Phoenix Fairy at a gathering of nascent soul cultivators. She, who had just arrived, thought the person was talking about her, so she said something modest. Unexpectedly, that person said that not long ago, he took a junior to Biyun sect to see Feng Ning and was shocked by her beauty. He said she was the real Phoenix Fairy with unparalleled beauty. The scene instantly became awkward. Although someone said the two Phoenix Fairies were both extraordinarily beautiful, Fairy Fengqing had already lost face and couldn't get it back. Fairy Fengqing wasn't a magnanimous person. She already bore a grudge in her heart. Chapter 573. Although she didn't like it, Fairy Fengqing still looked calm. Fellow Taoists, are you here to take over Bichuan Court? Mo Chenga frowned slightly. Take over? According to the rules of the Immortal Alliance, Bichuan Court belonged to the Immortal Alliance, but the Alliance wouldn't intervene in the internal affairs of each cultivation group. They were sent here to guard the Eastern Sea to prevent beast cultivators. It had nothing to do with taking over. Fairy Fengqing really didn't know whether she said the wrong thing or she was used to being arrogant in Tiandao sect, so she casually said she wanted to take over. Qin Shi said, "We're ordered by the Immortal Alliance to guard the Eastern Sea and stop the beast cultivators." Fairy Fengqing nodded. "Please come with me." She took the lead and flew towards Bichuan Court. After handing the flying ship to Guangzhou, the three of them followed Fairy Fengqing and landed outside Bichuan Court's gate. As soon as they landed, a female cultivator came to them. "Greetings to seniors and Elder Yi," she said Elder Yi to Mo Chenga. Mo Chenga stared at the person in front of her and asked curiously, "You know me?" This female cultivator looked to be in her 20s and was in the foundation building realm. She wasn't very beautiful, but she had a sharp temperament, so she was obviously a person with a strong character. However, in front of them, she was very respectful and didn't dare to be rude in the slightest. She said, "Junior Ingjini, the current sect head of Bichuan Court. I've seen Elder Ye's portrait and heard you were coming, so I recognized you at first sight." Sect head? Mo Chenga narrowed her eyes. "What about Wei Haolan?" Sect head Wei passed away 10 years ago. Mo Chenga was stunned. Passed away. She remembered that when she first came to Bichuan Court, Wei Haolan was only about 100 years old. Although she was seriously injured and couldn't make a realm breakthrough for the rest of her life, she still had about 200 years to live. Yes, when she first came to Bichuan Court, she was only in her 30s. More than 150 years had passed. If Wei Haolan's luck was bad and her old injuries were aggravated, it wouldn't be strange for her to pass away. Alas, what a pity. If Wei Haolan was still alive, with her nascent soul cultivation methods, she might be able to repair her injuries. Even if she couldn't make a realm breakthrough, she could still live a few more years. Ingjini then invited them into the sect head's main hall. Mo Chenga didn't ask any more questions. It wouldn't be too late to look for Ingjini after she was done with her business. Fairy Fengqing very naturally sat on the host's seat, then took the tea served by the sect head maid of Bichuan Court. Mo Chenga's eyelids twitched a bit, but she concealed it very well. Qin Shi merely glanced at the 3 words Blue Water Palace hanging above, a faint smile appearing on the corners of his mouth. As for Feng Ning, she didn't pay any attention to Fairy Feng Qing. She didn't even bat an eyelid. She didn't care about Fairy Feng Qing, but she also didn't take Fairy Feng Qing seriously. "Fellow Taoists, please take a seat," Fairy Feng Qing said indifferently. "Then we won't stand on ceremony," Qin Shi also replied faintly. The 3 of them then sat down together. Using the opportunity of drinking tea, Mo Chenga stealthily shifted her gaze towards Ingenie, who was standing to the side. Ingenie noticed and glanced at Fairy Feng Qing, then gave her a helpless look. Mo Chenga smiled. This Ingenie was really quick-witted. This was the first time they met, and their relationship couldn't be compared to Wei Haolan's. Now that Fairy Feng Qing made such a small gesture, it was as if she shared a little secret that outsiders shouldn't know about, and their relationship suddenly became closer. "Since you're here, I'll leave Bichuan Court's matters to you. I'll go back to Tiandao Sect tomorrow," Fairy Feng Qing said coldly. She didn't seem to have any intention of telling them in detail. Qin Shi pursed his lips and said, "Fellow Taoist Feng Qing, don't you have anything to tell us?" "No need. It's all here." Fairy Feng Qing flipped her hand and tossed him a jade slip. Qin Shi caught it then said, "Since that's the case, we won't disturb fellow Taoist Feng Qing." He then turned towards Ingenie. "Miss, where shall we rest?" Feng Qing was stunned. She didn't expect Qin Shi to be so straightforward. She thought they'd ask her a lot of things. Ingenie immediately understood. She hastily bowed then said, "Seniors, please follow me." She then bowed towards Fairy Feng Qing, then turned around and led the 3 of them out of the sect head's main hall, leaving Fairy Feng Qing sitting on the sect head's seat alone with an unhappy expression. Mo Chenga looked around. Bichuan Court's main gate and steps were badly damaged, and there were even dried bloodstains around them. Apparently, a fierce battle happened here not too long ago. On the way, the disciples who saw them hurriedly saluted them. Before Fairy Feng Qing, they'd never seen a nascent soul cultivator. Now that they saw 3 nascent soul cultivators walking together, they were so excited that they couldn't even speak. Ingenie smiled and said, "Seniors, please forgive me. I'm just a disciple from a small cultivation group." Mo Chenga waved her hand to show she didn't mind. She then asked, "How many core formation cultivators are there in the group now?" Upon hearing this question, Ingenie showed a proud expression. In reply to Elder Yi, "There are 4 core formation elders in the group now. The one with the highest cultivation level is Elder Tang, who's already in the peak of the middle stage." Mo Chenga nodded. "But it's rare to have 4 more core formation cultivators in 100 years. Ingenie smiled at her praise. "It's all thanks to Elder Yi. If Elder Yi hadn't given us a lot of medicinal pills, the elders wouldn't have advanced so quickly." Mo Chenga just smiled then asked, "Who's this Elder Tang you're talking about?" "It's Elder Tang Shin. He's an old friend of Elder Yi." Ingenie answered hurriedly. "So it's Tang Shin." Mo Chenga was a bit surprised. Tang Shin's aptitude was good, but his character was too weak, so the possibility of him forming his gold core wasn't very high. She didn't expect him to become the person with the highest cultivation level in Bichuan Court. It seemed he'd made great progress in the past few years. Soon, the 4 of them arrived at an exquisite garden. Ingenie bowed. "Seniors, please." The 3 of them entered and found that the garden was elegant. There were flowers everywhere and the walls were exquisite. There were several small courtyards in the garden that weren't too far from each other. They were both convenient for communication and wouldn't invade one's privacy. Feng Ning glanced around then pointed at the small building facing the water. "I live there." Ingenie immediately called 2 maids. "Take Senior Feng there." The 2 maids bowed then answered, "Yes." Feng Ning was about to turn around and leave when Qin Shi's voice rang out from behind her. "Miss Feng." Feng Ning turned around, her gaze cold. "What's the matter?" Qin Shi raised the jade slip in his hand and said, "Don't you want to take a look?" "It won't be too late to give it to me after you've read it," Feng Ning said then turned around and left. Mo Chenga watched her enter the small building and said with surprise, "This Miss Feng is indeed a bit unusual." Qin Shi said, "She's not interested in this matter, right? Especially, maybe she has some complaints about me." "What complaints?" Mo Chenga stared at him. "Didn't you say you've only seen her a few times? Could it be that she has some kind of entanglement with you?" "What kind of entanglement could there be?" Qin Shi said calmly, "She's very arrogant, but her cultivation level isn't as high as mine, so she doesn't like to pay attention to me even when we meet." Mo Chenga stared at him and smiled. "There are also times when you're not liked by women?" She smiled. I'm not a woman's charmer. There are naturally people who like me and people who hate me. I'd be a fool to believe you. Chinga cast a glance at him with a smile, then turned towards Jingi. Come with us. Yes. Jingi was secretly delighted. Judging from this elder Ye's behavior, she seemed to have quite a bit of affection for Bishuan court. The two maids opened the door to the small parlor. The three of them entered, and Chinga and she sat down without any politeness. This small building was their residence now, so it was natural for them to sit in the master's seat here. Someone like Fairy Fengqing was the one who'd be called ignorant. She casually sat on someone else's seat in the sect head hall. Not just anyone could sit on the sect head's seat. Aside from the sect head, only the head elder could sit on it occasionally. Sitting on someone else's sect head's seat would be too disrespectful. It simply seemed like she didn't take their group seriously. Speaking of which, Chinga felt Fairy Fengqing was even stranger than Feng Ning. It was normal for her to look down on Bishuan court. The highest cultivation level in Bishuan court, Tangshin, was only in the middle stage of the core formation realm, and it was only a small cultivation group in Kunwu. But her attitude towards she was interesting. She's strength was a small realm higher than hers, but not only did she keep a cold expression from beginning to end, but she also didn't even want to explain the situation to him. How's Bishuan court's situation these past few years? Chinga asked. Jingi stood respectfully with her hands by her side and answered, Elder Yi, Bishuan court has been developing well under the previous sect head Wei's leadership. Ever since we started recruiting male disciples, our reputation in Eastern Sea has been very good, and we've also received a group of disciples with good aptitudes. Now, our group has 2,000 aura refining disciples, 100 foundation building disciples, and 4 core formation elders. Chinga smiled and said, You're the sect head and I'm just a guest elder. I won't meddle in the group's affairs, so you don't need to answer me so respectfully. Yes. Her answer made Jingi a bit disappointed. She wouldn't meddle in the group's affairs, so she naturally didn't care much about Bishuan court. In fact, she was eager for this nascent soul elder to intervene. With the help of a nascent soul elder, Bishuan court's meteoric rise was just around the corner. Maybe they'd be able to squeeze into the ranks of medium cultivation groups in Kunwu very soon. When she took over the position of sect head, Wei Haolan told her the true identity of the group's guest elder, Elder Yi. Chinga was instantly shocked. Chinga only entered Bishuan court after the Eastern Sea's great chaos. Regarding this guest elder, she only knew he had a deep relationship with Bishuan court, but she never expected he had such a great background. 10 years ago, this Lord Dawish Qingwei was only Master Dawish Qingwei. However, he was Shenqing School's Lord Dawish Jinghe's last disciple, a genius who advanced to the core formation realm at the age of 84, and the Dao companion of a middle-stage nascent soul cultivator. This kind of background was already enough to shake Bishuan court. Later, when she learned Elder Yi left the mountain to travel and went somewhere, she was very worried something might have happened to him. Unexpectedly, a few years later, not only did Elder Yi return, but he also formed his nascent soul. After learning about this, Chinga rejoiced at the good karma forged between her seniors. With a nascent soul guest elder who was also a famous figure in the celestial pole, Bishuan court didn't need to worry about being bullied. Chinga had long planned to wait until Elder Yi held his nascent soul ceremony, then she would send a generous gift to his door and build a good relationship with him so their friendship wouldn't fade after a long time. Chinga never expected demonic beasts would attack, so Elder Yi came to visit in advance. How were the losses from this demonic beast attack? Jingi answered, within the group the losses weren't too big. However, Linhai town was completely destroyed, and the mortals in the surrounding area suffered heavy casualties. I'm afraid it'll be difficult for us to accept disciples in the future. That's not difficult. Kunwu has a lot of low-level cultivators, so you can go to Kunwu to accept disciples. Jingi bowed her head respectfully. Yes, thank you for your advice, Elder Yi. Chinga couldn't help but smile. How could Jingi not think of such a simple matter? Chinga's words were flattering her. She couldn't help but think of Wei Haolan. If it was Wei Haolan, the friendship between the two of them wouldn't have to be like this. Alas. Unfortunately, she would never be able to see her again. Chapter 574. After more than 100 years, Tangshin had already formed his gold core and was already in the middle stage of the core formation realm. Xia Qing's aptitude was ordinary and she wasn't very enthusiastic about cultivation. Her cultivation level was still in the late stage of the foundation building realm. However, her pill concocting technique progressed very quickly and she was already a first-rate pill concocting master in the celestial pole. As expected, Wei Haolan's old injury relapsed, which was why her lifespan was greatly reduced. Fortunately, she was prepared for this long ago. She chose Ingenie from her many disciples and trained him as her successor. Mo Qiange heaved a sigh. Who would have thought that would be the last time he saw Wei Haolan? Ingenie said, "All the core formation elders in the school are busy, they didn't have time to come back. In a while, Elder Tang will request to see you." Mo Qiange nodded then asked, "Is there anyone to receive the cultivators we brought?" "Elder Yi, don't worry," Ingenie reported. "A core formation elder has already opened the Grand Mountain Protecting Formation and led them here." "That's good." Seeing that they had no intention of asking any further questions, Ingenie cleverly took his leave. "Seniors, please rest well. I still have some matters to attend to, so I'll take my leave first." Mo Qiange answered. After Ingenie left, Mo Qiange was lost in thought for a while before she finally said, "He's really similar to Wei Haolan. He's worthy of being the successor she taught." "Wei Haolan? The former sect head of Bishuan Court?" "Yes." Mo Qiange said absent-mindedly, "I just feel like I haven't even lived half of my life, but I can't believe some of my old friends have already passed away. There will be more and more in the future. You have to get used to it." Mo Qiange was silent for a moment before she suddenly asked, "Have you ever returned to your hometown in the secular world?" She was stunned for a moment before he nodded lightly. "I did." Before Mo Qiange could ask again, he said softly, "I'm the third oldest. Aside from me, my parents also have many children. Many years later, when I returned to the Qin family, I realized that I couldn't integrate into the family." Mo Qiange stared at him. She continued, "Our ancestor was conferred the title of Marquis for several hundred years and gave birth to more than 10 descendants. Some of them have already left the prince's mansion to make a living elsewhere. Our branch still remains in the prince's mansion. There was no title of nobility and there was no business. To put it bluntly, he was relying on the prince's mansion to eat and wait for death. Therefore we, the side branch brothers, are often bullied by the direct descendants of the prince's mansion. Big brother has a fiery temper and always fights with them. Second brother is weak and lets them bully him. As for me, I'm neither like big brother nor second brother. When they bully me, I ignore them. After a long time they find it boring and rarely bother me. Father liked eldest brother and felt that eldest brother would have a bright future. Mother loved second brother and had to take care of youngest sister, so she didn't have time to care about me. I also hoped that they would notice me, but when Master came to the prince's mansion to take me away, my status suddenly changed. The prince rewarded me greatly, and my brothers could only look at me enviously. My parents never thought that the first person to bring them glory would be me, who they had never cared about. During those days I was extremely happy, not only because Master wanted to take me to cultivate, but also because my parents loved me very much." He sighed with disappointment and continued to say, 30 years later, when I returned to the prince's mansion, father already had a position, eldest brother became a general, second brother also passed the Hanlin Academy, and youngest sister even became an imperial concubine. When I returned, they were extremely surprised. My parents accompanied me every day, and my brothers and sisters always surrounded me. At first I was happy because I thought I finally obtained the parental affection I longed for. But later I discovered that they revered me because I had become an immortal, not because I was their son or brother. They treated me warmly and kindly, but their gazes seemed to be thousands of miles away, respectful and distant. There was no longer a place for me in this family. Mo Qiange was speechless. She couldn't find her family, but he had his family by his side and couldn't find familial love. She really didn't know which was more tragic. She raised the corner of his mouth and looked at her with a smile. In fact, this is also good. If it wasn't like this, I wouldn't have cut off the familial entanglement so easily. Since I'm aiming for the great Tao, the fate of family in the secular world will end sooner or later. And, she continued, before I formed my gold core, I went to the prince's mansion again. Most of my parents and brothers passed away, and then I really understood this truth. Then I formed my gold core, calmed my mind, and succeeded in one try. At this point someone came from outside. "Aunt, Master." It was Shui Linbua's voice. Mo Qiange called her in and asked, "What are you doing here?" Shui Linbua bowed her head and said respectfully, "Disciple came to serve Master and Aunt." She smiled and said, This isn't a sect, so you don't need to take care of the cave. Just go and practice. This. Shui Linbo turned her gaze to Emo Tienga. Emo Tienga nodded. Go. Shui Linbo bowed. Thank you, Master Ant. Disciple will take her leave. After she left, Emo Tienga said, Linbo doesn't seem to regard herself as our disciple. Qinshi smiled. Isn't that good? It means she's not a greedy person. Emo Tienga sighed and didn't speak anymore. Qinshi took out the jade slip Fairy Fengqing gave him and read its contents. Although her attitude wasn't good, the jade slip still recorded everything in detail, including the location of the demon city, the distribution and strength of the beast cultivators. Just as he finished reading, someone else came from outside. It was Kuangzhu. The Taoist robes of Shenqing school had different flavors on different people. Qinshi was proud and aloof, Bai Yanfei was handsome, and Kuangzhu was elegant. This head disciple of Soul's Retreat Peak was said to be the most popular foundation-building male disciple in the sect. After he formed his gold core, he became even more handsome. After he came in, he cupped his hands and saluted in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. Martial uncles. Qinshi asked, What's the matter? The disciples have settled down, so I came to report to martial uncles. Is there any problem? Kuangzhu shook his head. Everything is fine. I just wanted to ask martial uncles if we need to take over Bichuan Court's formation. They guarded the sect, so the formation was the most important thing, so they naturally had to hold it in their hands. Besides, Kuangzhu didn't believe such a small cultivation group could have any profound formations. The sooner they took over, the better it would be for them to improve. No hurry, Emo Tienga said, I'll check the formation myself. Rest first, we'll talk tomorrow. Kuangzhu paused for a moment then answered, Yes, disciple will take his leave first. Right after Kuangzhu went out, he heard footsteps. 4 core formation cultivators entered the courtyard and walked towards them. The two sides met and examined each other. The 4 people saw his clothes and asked, Are you a fellow Taoist from Shenqing school? I am. Kuangzhu cupped his hands towards them. The person in the lead was a handsome young man with a fair complexion. When he spoke, his face was slightly red like a woman's. He returned the greeting and said, I'm Bichuan Court's Tang Shen. I hope fellow Taoists can forgive me for my poor hospitality during this critical time. Kuangzhu answered faintly, I wouldn't dare, but he didn't seem to have any intention of saying his name. The 4 people immediately knew he didn't want to be friends with them. Tang Shen said, We still have to see the 2 seniors. Goodbye. Kuangzhu stepped aside. As you wish, fellow Taoist. Tang Shen and the others walked to the small parlor and shouted, Junior Bichuan Court cultivators request to see the 2 seniors. A moment later, a voice came from inside the parlor. Come in. The 4 people entered and respectfully saluted. Greetings to the 2 seniors. Emo Tienga saw that the person in the lead was indeed Tang Shen, so she was very happy. Tang Shen's aptitude wasn't bad, so it was very rare for him to be able to break through to the core formation realm. He might even be able to form his nascent soul in the future so Bichuan Court could prosper again. No need to be so polite. Emo Tienga saw Tang Shen looking up at her with a smile, so she also smiled and said, Elder Tang, long time no see. Tang Shen's face was slightly red, but his expression was calm. Yes, it's been almost 100 years. It's really good to see Elder Yi again. He then looked at Qinshi. When he came, he knew Shenqing School's Lord Taoist Shoujing also came, so he was very curious about what Elder Ye's husband looked like. Now that he saw Qinshi, he thought in his heart, with such an outstanding demeanor, it's no wonder Elder Yi fell in love with him. Qinshi smiled at him, but he was a bit puzzled. Why did this person's face look so familiar? He looked at him for a while then asked directly, Elder Tang, why do I think you look so familiar? Have we met before? Tang Shen was stunned for a moment, then he stared at him carefully. He also felt he looked familiar. Strange, this Lord Taoist Shoujing shouldn't have been to the Eastern Sea, and he only went to Kunwu once. Ah. Tang Shen suddenly understood. He looked at him and said, Junior once met Senior on Demonic Mountain. His reminder reminded Qinshi. Wasn't this Tang Shen the handsome youth who followed Venerable Swordsman Fulling? Because he had a pure yang constitution, he was caught by Venerable Swordsman Fulling and brought to Demonic Mountain. Qinshi's gaze turned to Emo Tienga with a strange expression, making Emo Tienga confused. Did she know this Elder Tang had a pure yang constitution? She once said that when she came to Bichuan Court, she was trapped with them for 20 years and had a life and death experience together, so it wasn't strange for her to tell him. However, no one would casually talk about this kind of secret. If she knew there was someone with a pure yang constitution, how would she react? Pure yang and pure yin were a perfect match. As for him, even though he had the yang spiritual bead and the pure yang technique, he didn't have a real pure yang constitution after all. In a split second, many thoughts flashed through Qinshi's mind. In the end he just said, "So it's you. I didn't expect you to survive Venerable Swordsman Fuling's fall." Tang Xin was a bit embarrassed. He said, "I was just lucky. I went out early and avoided the disaster." Luck is also a part of strength. Elder Tang, you survived a great disaster, so you're bound to have great fortune. Being able to form my gold core is already a great fortune for Junior. The other 3 core formation elders, 1 male and 2 female, looked at Tang Xin enviously. Chatting happily with 2 nascent soul seniors was also a great fated chance. Fortunately, the 2 seniors didn't give them the cold shoulder for too long. Soon they asked about beast cultivators and their duties. The 3 of them answered every question and explained everything clearly, hoping to leave a good impression in front of the 2 nascent soul seniors. Back when Mo Chenga came to Bishuan Court, they also met her, so they knew this elder Yi was good at pill concocting. If they could win her favor, she'd definitely give them some medicinal pills. Otherwise, they'd benefit a lot from her guidance. With this kind of expectation, the 3 of them said everything they knew. They talked endlessly until night fell. Chapter 575. The next day, everyone gathered in the sect head's main hall. This time, Fairy Fengqing didn't sit on the sect head's seat. She just stood there coldly. Feng Ning still turned a deaf ear to the matter in front of her. She wasn't interested in the matter at all. Mo Chenga smiled bitterly in secret. Since she ran into these 2 grandmasters, this matter seemed to have become their task. Seeing that everyone was present, Qinshi said, "Everyone knows why we're here. The Immortal Alliance will give us full authority to handle the demonic beast matter this time, and Bishuan Court will also obey orders." Tang Xin stood up and bowed. The Immortal Alliance came to help Bishuan Court, and Bishuan Court will obey orders. Qinshi nodded, then looked at the Bishuan Court elders and said, "Good. Since Bishuan Court has no objection, the Immortal Alliance will temporarily take over the Great Mountain Protecting Formation. I hope the elders can understand." A nascent soul senior being so polite made the elders say they didn't dare. Qinshi continued, "A few days ago Fairy Fengqing arranged everything very well. Now that we have enough manpower, I just need to make some slight changes." "Anshi." Kuang Zhu answered, "Disciple is here. Choose suitable disciples and fulfill your duty of rescuing the injured." "Yes." After Kuang Zhu left, Qinshi continued, "Zhifei." Bai Yinfei answered with his head lowered, "Disciple is here. Organize all the disciples, including Bishuan Court's disciples, into groups of 10. "Yes." These measures were the result of his discussion with Mo Tienga last night. He also invited Feng Ning to discuss them, but she said she didn't understand and that they could make the decision. Since Feng Ning refused, they wouldn't be polite. Qinshi had the highest cultivation level among them, so he was responsible for this matter. If anything went wrong, it would be his responsibility. All the core formation cultivators accepted their orders and left, leaving only the 2 of them, Feng Ning, Fairy Fengqing, Tang Xin, and Ying Jini in the main hall. Fairy Fengqing was the first to speak. "Since fellow Taoist Shoujing has taken care of it, I'll return to Tiandao sect." "Since you insist on leaving, we won't keep you," Qinshi said faintly. Fairy Fengqing wanted to say something, but she was stopped by his words. She only said one sentence. How was that insistence? He couldn't wait for her to leave. Fairy Fengqing's face darkened, and there was a hint of anger in her voice. "Then I'll take my leave." With a flick of her sleeve, she walked out. Seeing this, Ying Jingyi hurriedly chased after her. "Senior Fengqing." The 2 of them walked out of the hall, and their voices gradually faded into the distance. "Senior Fengqing, the teleportation array is ready. Junior will take you there." Fairy Fengqing said coldly, "No need." Ying Jingyi was surprised. "Senior?" Not long after, Ying Jingyi turned around, her face filled with confusion. She really couldn't understand why Fairy Fengqing didn't use the transportation array. It should be known that it wasn't easy for a nascent soul cultivator to pass through Demonic Mountain on their own. The others didn't dwell on this matter. Mo Chenga took the lead and said, "I'll go take a look at the Great Mountain Protecting Formation first. If possible, I'll improve it a bit." After all, she was only a guest elder of Bishuan Court. Matters like modifying the Great Mountain Protecting Formation still required the consent of Tang Xin, the head elder. Tang Xin didn't realize what she meant at all. He just stared at Mo Chenga and said with a blushing smile, "I'll have to trouble Elder Yi." Mo Chenga nodded at everyone then left alone. She'd been to Bichuan Court's Great Mountain Protecting Formation before. She flew to an arrow tower with familiarity and landed there. The Foundation building disciples guarding the arrow tower were startled to see her. "Senior Yu." They hadn't seen her before. Mo Chenga didn't say anything. She just took out an identity tablet from her Chengkuan ring and waved it in front of them. The two Foundation building disciples were extremely surprised. "Guest elder?" What she showed them was the identity tablet of Bichuan Court's guest elder. Mo Chenga nodded. "Correct. I'll take over the formation here for the time being." The two disciples hastily stepped aside and said respectfully, "Yes." Not to mention the identity tablet of the guest elder in her hand, they couldn't see through her cultivation level, so how could they dare to stop her? When Mo Chenga entered, the disciples on duty hastily stepped aside. They all heard the conversation she had with the disciples guarding the door just now. Mo Chenga had seen Bichuan Court's Great Mountain Protecting Formation before, so she could see through the formation's key points with just a cursory glance. This formation was laid by Mo Yaoqing. Mo Yaoqing could be considered a top-notch formation master. This Great Mountain Protecting Formation wasn't inferior to that of a medium-sized cultivation group in Kunwu. It could easily kill several nascent soul cultivators. Because of this, the beast cultivators from the Eastern Sea couldn't break in. Mo Chenga's current attainments and formations were almost on par with Mo Yaoqing's from back then. Mo Chenga's advantage was that during the past 5,000 years, formations had been developing non-stop, so her knowledge about formations was definitely more advanced than Mo Yaoqing's. Besides, she'd also seen a lot more formations than Mo Yaoqing. For example, the many famous great formations listed in Xuanji Formation Book and Shenqing School's Great Mountain Protecting Formation, the Heaven and Earth Life-Killing Formation. After a moment of consideration, Mo Chenga decided to change Bichuan Court's Great Mountain Protecting Formation into the World Reversing Formation. The World Reversing Formation was one of the 10 most ominous formations listed in Xuanji Formation Book. When trapped inside, heaven and earth would be overturned, and water and fire would have their own spirits. If one didn't have a certain understanding of formations, it would be very difficult to find the way out. The most important thing was that Bichuan Court's Great Mountain Protecting Formation was very similar to the World Reversing Formation, so it wasn't difficult to change it. As they watched Mo Chenga take out one rare material after another from her Chengkuan ring, the eyes of the disciples on duty in the watchtower almost popped out of their sockets. Among them, the eyes of those who were interested in formations were even brighter. A Great Mountain Protecting Formation definitely wasn't something ordinary formation masters could modify. This was an excellent learning opportunity. After spending half a day, Mo Chenga finally embedded the last high-grade spirit stone. With a buzzing sound, the formation map on the ground flickered and started to operate. Mo Chenga called the head disciple on duty, then handed him a jade slip. "How to operate it? Just follow this jade slip." "Yes." The disciple on duty respectfully took the jade slip. Mo Chenga nodded, then waved her sleeves. She then transformed into a white light and flew out of the watchtower. She circled around Bichuan Court's monastery to make sure the world reversing formation was intact, then returned to the sect head's main hall. Right now, she was the only one left in the main hall. Upon seeing her return, he said, "You're back? Let's go then." Mo Chenga nodded. The two of them left the main hall and headed towards the monastery. In the square, groups of foundation building cultivators stood in formation. Bai Yinfei was teaching them how to cooperate to kill the enemy. Upon seeing them coming out, he stopped talking and cupped his hands towards them from afar. After they left the monastery and flew towards the Eastern Sea, Mo Chenga couldn't help but ask, "What's going on with Bai Yinfei?" "What do you mean what's going on? When did he become so low-key?" Ever since they set out from Shenqing School, he didn't say a single word of nonsense, and his usual arrogance was nowhere to be seen. He only cared about doing his own thing in silence. Moreover, he was also very respectful towards them. No matter how you looked at it, it was very abnormal. She curled up the corners of his mouth and smiled at her. "Isn't it because of you?" "Because of me?" Mo Chenga was surprised. Really? Was he taught a lesson by senior martial brother Xinjiang that year? It wasn't strange to say that he restrained himself a bit, but his current behavior was the complete opposite of what he used to be. Could a person change to this extent? Of course not. Senior Marshal Brother Xinjiang only grounded him. How could he change to this extent? Then what's going on? Qin, she said, after you formed your gold core he changed a bit. It wasn't until you came back that he was really stimulated. I see. Mo Chenga understood. Bai Yanfei had excellent aptitudes, so he thought highly of himself. When they were in the foundation building realm, the gap between them wasn't big, so he didn't feel anything. It didn't matter that she left him behind in the core formation realm because he would form his gold core sooner or later. It wasn't until he reached the nascent soul realm that Bai Yanfei truly felt despair. Mo Chenga already formed her nascent soul, but he was only in the middle stage of the core formation realm. Even if he didn't encounter any bottlenecks later and could form his nascent soul smoothly, it would take him at least 70 or 80 years. By that time she would probably be in the middle stage of the nascent soul realm. Besides, forming one's nascent soul wasn't like forming one's gold core. Even if he had a single spiritual root, he might not succeed for a long time. In fact, Bai Yanfei's confidence in forming his nascent soul had already disappeared. He even doubted whether he was suitable for cultivation. Senior Marshal Brother Xinjiang is going to have a headache. Qin, she sighed. Following the route given by Fairy Fengqing, the two of them traveled for thousands of miles and saw a large island in the distance. On the island was a small city built with stones. It was most likely the demon city that Fairy Fengqing had mentioned. Mo Chenga was about to use the breath-concealing technique when she saw Qin Shi take out a peach branch from his Chenkuan ring. Huh. She recognized this peach branch. She saw him use it when she escaped from Yunwu sect. Qin Shi chanted an incantation in silence. The peach branch slowly emitted a cloud of smoke that enveloped the two of them. Qin Shi stopped and put the peach branch away. This is the main body of a 10,000-year-old peach spirit that has gained intelligence. It's born with the ability to hallucinate. After I formed my nascent soul, I figured out how to use it. As long as the smoke doesn't disperse, other people's divine senses won't be able to find us. Mo Chenga was curious. Won't it wither? The green leaves on the peach branch seemed to have just sprouted, and the stamens were still dripping with dew. No one would doubt it if they said it was just plucked from the peach branch. Qin Shi smiled and said, "This peach tree has already gained intelligence. It can absorb spiritual aura on its own, so it doesn't need soil." He paused for a moment, then said, "Let's go." Mo Chenga nodded. Under the cover of the peach branch's smoke, the two of them flew towards Demon City. The two of them stopped when they were about 2 to 3 miles away from Demon City. This distance was enough for them to investigate. If they got any closer, they could be seen with their eyes. This Demon City was very simple and crude. However, the whole city was filled with watchtowers, and without exception, there were more than 10 demonic beasts guarding the towers. The city protecting formation was also very advanced. Mo Chenga said, "This formation is very difficult to break." Qin Shi swept his gaze over the area and quickly estimated the number of beast cultivators. Fairy Fengqing is right. There are 6 8th-rank beast cultivators and about 5 to 6,000 demonic beasts in Demon City. So many? Mo Chenga was shocked. Bishuan Court only had 2,000 disciples, and most of them were in the aura refining realm. The demonic beasts in this Demon City were at least in the 2nd rank. Qin Shi carefully checked the map of Demon City and memorized the surrounding situation before he said, "Let's go back and slowly think of a way." Seeing that the smoke was about to dissipate, the two of them turned into flight lights and disappeared into the horizon. Chapter 576. While she was flying, a purple light suddenly appeared in front of her. Mo Chenga only had time to wave her heaven and earth fan to disperse the purple aura. The next moment, a purple thunderbolt suddenly appeared. Mo Chenga smiled and used the art of primordial singular energy. The moment the purple thunderbolt hit her, Qin Shi's sword aura had already surrounded the beast cultivator who released the purple thunderbolt. The beast cultivator was complacent when it saw the purple thunderbolt hit Mo Chenga, but the next moment the smile in its eyes froze. A layer of golden light appeared on Mo Chenga's body, and then the purple thunderbolt disappeared without a trace. It didn't block it or disperse it, it just disappeared for no reason. It was stunned. Several sword auras flew toward it and firmly entangled it. It had no time to think before it was entangled. Mo Chenga turned her wrist, and the heaven and earth fan opened. She waved her hand, and the beast cultivator was suddenly pushed back by a powerful force. It was about to hit Qin Shi's sword aura. At that moment, it rolled over and flew into the air with great dexterity with the force of the fan. This beast cultivator was a black-winged bird. It seemed to also know wind spells and was very agile. Tempest bird. Qin Shi's hand movements slowed down, and the sword auras surrounded the beast cultivator. Tempest bird. Emo Chenga looked at him. Qin Shi said, Tempest birds are naturally proficient in wind and thunder spells. They stopped attacking. The tempest bird floated in the air and said, You're quite knowledgeable. There aren't many birds in my clan anymore. I didn't expect there would be a cultivator who recognized it. Qin Shi moved slightly, withdrew his sword auras and said, Tempest birds are born with the tempest escape technique. This escape technique is extremely exquisite and can be regarded as top-notch. No wonder you dared to sneak attack us alone when you're only in the 8th rank. We can't stop you. You can go. The tempest bird didn't escape immediately. It flapped its wings and looked at Emo Chenga. May I ask why my purple thunderbolt doesn't affect you? A faint smile appeared on Emo Chenga's face. She spread her hands and a ball of golden lightning slowly floated in the center of her palm. She said, I also know thunder element spells, and the grade of my spells is slightly higher than yours, so your purple lightning is ineffective against me. Golden thunderbolt. The demonic cultivator stared at the lightning in her hand and was greatly astonished. Although I know many lightning-type mystic arts, most of them are white lightning. I've cultivated purple lightning, which is already extraordinary. But you've actually cultivated gold lightning. The lightning summoned by the lightning spell didn't just have one color, but white, green, purple, and gold. The most common type of lightning was white lightning. Those who were proficient in lightning spells could cultivate blue lightning. Purple lightning was a level higher. Generally, only demonic beasts with innate divine abilities or nascent soul cultivators who specialized in lightning spells could cultivate purple lightning. Metal lightning was the strongest type of lightning spell. If it was cultivated to its peak, it would be comparable to ordinary heavenly tribulation lightning. As for the golden lightning above Emo Chenga's head, it was the golden lightning of heavenly lightning. Of course, Emo Chenga wouldn't say that she was opportunistic and happened to intercept a piece of golden thunder from the heavenly tribulation, which was why she was able to cultivate golden thunder. She gave the demonic cultivator a subtle smile. The demonic cultivator didn't dare to act rashly. Originally, it relied on its top-notch escaping technique, the wind and thunder escape, to launch a sneak attack alone. If its attack missed, it could escape in an instant. But now, it knew these two people had extraordinary strength. If it still didn't know how to deal with them, it might die here before it could even use the wind and thunder escape. After thinking for a while, it was just about to say something like, "See you later," and escape, but it suddenly turned its head and looked in the direction of the demon city. Several flight lights emerged from the demon city and flew towards them. The demonic cultivator was delighted. Without saying a word, it used the wind and thunder escape in a flash and flew 1,000 feet away from them. For nascent soul cultivators, this distance wasn't safe, but if it was too far away, it would be worried that they would disappear without a trace. The two of them also noticed the movements in the demon city. Qin Shi said in a low voice, "Let's go." Without hesitation, the two of them turned into flight lights and flew towards Linhai. When they came out, they didn't plan to solve this problem directly. Otherwise, wouldn't the Immortal Alliance benefit? The two of them ran and the 6 demons chased after them. Soon they reached the shore of the East Sea. The 6 demons were still chasing them. Emo Chenga looked at Bishuan Court and the individual cultivators who hadn't taken refuge in Bishuan Court yet. She said, "We can't run anymore." Qin Shi nodded. The two of them stopped and turned around to wait for the demons to catch up. At that moment, a flight light also rose from Bishuan Court and flew towards them slowly. When the beast cultivator stood in front of them, the flight light from Bishuan Court also stopped beside Emo Chenga. This person was naturally Feng Ning. Her beautiful eyes swept over the two of them. Feng Ning raised the corners of her mouth and showed a smile for the first time. "You two are really amazing. You just went out for a walk, but you already attracted the attack of beast cultivators." She was obviously mocking them for causing trouble. Emo Chenga put on a fake smile. "How could I compare to Miss Feng? You're sitting upright in Bishuan Court. You have a good bearing and you're also very leisurely." Feng Ning's smile disappeared and she glared at her. Emo Chenga also glared back without any trace of politeness. Ding Luan and Feng Xiao were elders, so she treated them respectfully, but Feng Ning wasn't an exception. Qin Shi glanced at them, then his gaze fell on the beast cultivators. 3 against 6. He was in the middle stage of the nascent soul realm, and these beast cultivators were all in the 8th rank. None of them were in the 9th rank. "Fellow cultivators, why did you chase me here?" His calm expression made the 6 beast cultivators a bit hesitant. After all, Qinshi's cultivation level was higher than theirs. Nevertheless, they soon calmed down. Although there were middle-stage nascent soul cultivators among them, they still weren't afraid. They were already beast cultivators, not low-level demonic beasts. After they gained spiritual intelligence, the gap between them and human cultivators was so small that it was negligible. A soft snort came from among the beast cultivators. Soon after, one of the white petrels turned into a white-clothed woman who floated in the air and said, "Fellow cultivators, we built Demon City just to settle down here. The coast of the Eastern Sea is very suitable for us beast cultivators to live. If you're willing to leave this place, we'll use this mountain as a boundary and won't invade each other. What do you think?" "Won't invade each other?" She cast a sidelong glance at them and sneered. "Don't you think it's too late to talk about non-aggression after you've killed all the mortals here?" The white-clothed woman's expression turned cold. "Since ancient times, you humans have never been lenient in hunting us demonic beasts. Are only humans allowed to kill demons but demons aren't allowed to kill humans? Humans kill demons but demons don't kill humans." She said faintly, "We're different races and we've been killing each other for so long. How can we trust each other? Do you think we'll believe you just because you say the mountain is the boundary?" The white-clothed woman sneered. "Don't think we don't know that you're being attacked in the south and fighting in the northeast. It's not easy for you to dispatch people here, right?" She cast a sidelong glance at her. 2 or 3 won't be a problem. Do you think 2 or 3 can stop us?" The white-clothed woman's expression darkened. "We're here to spearhead the attack and there are still many beast cultivators behind us. How can you stop them with just you? Our Heavenly Limits Immortal Alliance isn't just composed of the 3 of us." The 2 sides exchanged a few words, and the negotiation soon broke down. The white-clothed woman's expression turned cold and she no longer spoke. Her gaze swept across the area, and the 6 beasts suddenly stepped forward and surrounded them. In an instant, Qinshi's sword formation was spread out. Mo Chenga waved her hand, and the puppet standing by her side waved the heaven and earth fan in its hand. As for Feng Ning, she waved her sash and a Chinese harp appeared in her hand. Mo Chenga glanced at her and thought, Ding Wan plays the zither, Feng Xiao plays the flute and their daughter, Feng Ning, plays the Chinese harp. This family's magic weapons are all musical instruments. If something big happens in Biyun sect, they don't even need to invite a band, they can just go and play. These words must not be spoken out. Otherwise, Feng Ning would definitely disregard the demon cultivator and directly fight with her. The 6 beast cultivators stood far away or close to each other. Mo Chenga's expression turned serious when she saw them. This is the 6 Directions Primordial Seizing Formation. No wonder none of these beast cultivators are in the 9th rank, but they're still chasing us without fear. Senior Marshal Brother, attack that woman first, then wait for an opportunity to kill that Tempest bird, Mo Chenga said in a low voice. She nodded slightly. She then glanced at Feng Ning and also said, Miss Feng, kill that woman. Feng Ning also noticed something was wrong. She didn't know much about formations, but seeing Mo Chenga's confident look, she didn't say anything to object. As soon as she finished speaking, the 6 beast cultivators moved. Mo Chenga couldn't see it before, but now that the 6 beast cultivators moved together, she realized the 6 beast cultivators had all 5 elements except for the Tempest bird. The puppet raised the Fuxing sword and slashed a sword light at the beast cultivator with the wood element. That wood demon didn't care about it and kept moving forward. A golden aura came out from the side and blocked the Fuxing sword. Feng Ning flicked her fingers repeatedly, and the sound of the Chinese harp rang out. The fierce sound of killing rushed towards Bai Yen. She spread his sword formation, which spread out a vast sea of fire and swept towards Bai Yen. Bai Yen was making hand seals, and a faintly discernible aura of the earth element firmly bound the 6 beast cultivators together. The drifting spiritual aura converged into a pure primordial aura. Feng Ning's harp arrived first and rushed towards Bai Yen. The beast cultivator next to Bai Yen hurriedly came to her rescue and blocked Feng Ning's music. Mo Chenga's expression froze. She waved the heaven and earth fan in her hand, and a monstrous water column rushed towards the fire demon. At the same time, the puppet raised the Fuxing sword and slashed down hard, hitting the wood demon's branch, blocking its way. The branch was cut in 2. The pure primordial aura rushed towards the wood demon, and the broken part quickly regained its vitality. Qinshi's sword aura swept towards the water demon. The water demon hurriedly swung its tail, and a stream of water suddenly rose from the sea, forming a wall to block the sword aura. Feng Ning wasn't affected at all. The harp clanged and the music attacked by Yen again. One person was the main attacker while the other two restrained the wood demon. For a while the two sides were fighting. Qin Shi's cultivation level was higher than theirs, so it wouldn't be a problem for the three of them to work together to deal with the 6 beast cultivators. However, these 6 beast cultivators actually formed a 6 directions formation, helping each other and attacking together. The gathered primordial aura constantly made up for their injuries, so they fought to a draw. While they were in a stalemate, Mo Chenga winked. The sword aura in Qin Shi's hand suddenly turned and swept towards the tempest bird that was condensing lightning. The tempest bird was terrified. It thought the three of them could see that Bai Yen was the formation eye of their 6 directions formation, so they would definitely attack Bai Yen with all their strength. It didn't expect them to actually see that it was the main attacker that could kill with one strike. The sword light as fast as lightning was about to hit it head-on. It didn't have time to think, so it waved its hand and lightning surrounded itself tightly. However, in the next moment, it still let out a blood-curdling scream. It was Mo Chenga who used the golden lightning to break its purple lightning, making it take Qin Shi's sword attack head-on. Chapter 577. The 3 Yang Real Fire sword light cut through the Wind Thunderbird's black wings. Blood splashed everywhere, dyeing the sea red. The Wind Thunderbird screamed and fell from the sky. The other 5 beast cultivators looked at each other and signaled each other with their eyes. Water and wood rushed down to catch the Wind Thunderbird, while metal, fire, and earth attacked Feng Ning at the same time. They wanted to besiege Wei to rescue Feng Ning, but Mo Chenga and Qin Shi didn't even look at them. The vermilion bird's flames spread and attacked the water and wood monsters. Mo Chenga waved her heaven and earth fan, and mist gushed out of the fan and rolled toward the Wind Thunderbird. The water monster opened its mouth and spat out a monstrous wave toward the vermilion bird's flame. Water restrained fire, and it was a sea beast that lived in the sea all year round, so it was very confident in fire spells. Unexpectedly, the flame in front of it was no ordinary fire. It instantly roasted the huge wave into water vapor and still rushed toward the 2 monsters. The 2 monsters were shocked. Half of their bodies were burned by the vermilion bird's flame, so they had no choice but to let go of the Wind Thunderbird. Qin Shi shot a sword aura straight through the Wind Thunderbird's chest. Without its wings, the Wind Thunderbird could no longer use the wind and thunder escape, so it could only take the attack. The mist flying out of the heaven and earth fan turned into thin threads, rolling the Wind Thunderbird firmly and pulling it over. On the other side, Feng Ning blocked the attack, but she didn't have enough strength and was hit by the fire monster's remaining power. Metal, fire, and earth saw the tied Wind Thunderbird and the defeated water and wood monsters. They signaled each other with their eyes, and the 5 monsters fled at the same time, heading toward the demon city. They didn't chase the 5 monsters who fled. Mo Chenga threw the Wind Thunderbird to Qin Shi and turned to look at Feng Ning. Feng Ning's whole sleeve was burnt. She covered her arm and glared at them. "Miss Feng, are you okay?" Feng Ning's face twisted. She couldn't help but say angrily, "You actually used me as bait?" Mo Chenga said nonchalantly, "I'm fine, aren't I?" "Of course you're fine." The more Feng Ning thought about it, the angrier she became. She pointed at her sleeve and said, "I'm the one who's not fine." With half of her sleeve burnt, she turned from a fairy into a lunatic. Mo Chenga looked at her and smiled, showing her shining teeth. "What's wrong with such a small injury? Of course you will get hurt in a fight. If it wasn't you, of course it's nothing." Feng Ning glared at Qin Shi. "Are you just going to let her do what she wants?" Qin Shi smiled. "It's just a small injury. It's really nothing. You. Feng Ning was seething with anger. She pointed at Qin Shi and said, "What? Are you treating me like this after marrying someone else?" Qin Shi paused. Mo Chenga cast him a glance, then looked at Feng Ning. Feng Ning sneered, "What are you doing? You treat him like a treasure, but I don't care." Mo Chenga chuckled. "Even if you want it, you won't have the chance, right?" "What did you say?" With Feng Ning's temperament, how could she tolerate someone mocking her like this? "If it wasn't because I didn't mean it, we would have been engaged 800 years ago." Mo Chenga looked at Qin Shi. "Is that so?" Qin Shi coughed and looked away. "This matter? I don't know." Judging from his expression, there was an 80% chance that it was true. Mo Chenga snorted coldly in her heart, but she soon smiled at Feng Ning and said, "Miss Feng, my senior martial brother never agreed, right?" Feng Ning stared at her coldly. "Senior Jinghe agreed." Mo Chenga rolled her eyes rudely. So Miss Feng likes my master? Although the age gap is a bit big, it doesn't matter. For us nascent soul cultivators, what's a few hundred years? My master is only 1,000 years old, so it's still a long time before he passes away. Maybe the day he reaches the deification realm is just around the corner. Nonsense. Feng Ning blushed. Who has anything to do with Senior Jinghe? Mo Qiange showed an extremely surprised expression. Didn't my master agree to your marriage? She deliberately twisted her words. Feng Ning stomped her feet. I said Senior Jinghe agreed to my marriage with Qin Shoujing. Oh, I see. Mo Qiange seemed to lose interest and muttered, it's really strange. Since my master agreed to the marriage, why didn't he tell my senior martial brother? Is he joking? Oh, my master's always like this. He always teases the younger generation, really. Feng Ning's face turned red, then blue, then blue, then red. Finally, she pointed at Mo Qiange and shouted angrily, Mo Qingwei, you. Why are you angry, Miss Feng? Mo Qiange approached her. It's easy to get old if you're always angry. Miss Feng is so beautiful, wouldn't it be a pity for you to get old? Cough. She pulled her back. Don't make trouble. Miss Feng is injured. Let's go back and heal first. Mo Qiange turned her head. Her gaze could kill people and she said word by word, what did you say? I didn't say anything. Mo Qiange nodded with satisfaction. She then turned her head and said to Feng Ning with a very kind smile, Miss Feng, instead of being angry here, why don't you go back and change your clothes? If seniors Luan and Feng see you like this, they'll feel sorry for you. Feng Ning stared at her while gnashing her teeth. In the end, she flung her intact sleeve, turned into a flight light and flew towards Bishuan Court. Mo Qiange didn't stop smiling until Feng Ning's figure disappeared and turned to look at Qin Shi. Qin Shi braced himself and said, Master did say that, but I was immersed in cultivation at that time and didn't respond. Mo Qiange closed the heaven and earth fan and crossed her arms. So she likes you? How could that be? Qin Shi said, there are many people who fawn over her. I've only seen her a few times and we haven't talked much. That's hard to say, Mo Qiange said. Back then, didn't senior martial sister Wei also? Thinking of Wei Jiasi and her bleak ending, she couldn't help but fall silent. Qin Shi explained again, don't be suspicious. Feng Ning was just indignant. Since she was born, Luan and Feng have always doted on her. Plus, she's beautiful, so everyone treats her with respect, so. Mo Qiange didn't say anything more and just said, let's go back. She then rode the flight light and flew back to Bishuan Court. Qin Shi, carrying the Tempest Bird, was stunned for a long time. In the end, he shook his head and followed her. When he returned to the main hall, Mo Qiange was already sitting on the side, enjoying Bishuan Court's top-grade spiritual tea. When she saw him coming in, she turned her head and ignored him. Qin Shi threw the Tempest Bird to the side and sat down. Where did you come from, beast cultivators? After being stabbed twice, the Tempest Bird was already on the verge of death. It opened its eyes then closed them again. Not going to talk? A sneer appeared on Qin Shi's face. If you don't want to be turned into a refined corpse, you'd better tell me honestly. The Tempest Bird said in a hoarse voice, no need, I'll kill myself. Right after it said that, the beast core inside its body slowly lit up. Upon seeing this, the two of them turned pale with fright. Qin Shi hastily summoned his sword light and without saying anything, he ruthlessly stabbed the Tempest Bird's beast core. Mo Qiange took out her white silk handkerchief, which turned into a white cloth several dozen feet in size and covered the Tempest Bird. A loud boom. The cultivators in the square who were being tortured by Yanfei turned their heads and saw that the main hall of Bishuan Court's main hall was shaking. Cough. Mo Qiange waved her hand, brushing away the dust in front of her. She muttered, how cunning. Turns out he's long prepared to explode his beast core. Whether it was the explosion of a cultivator's gold core or nascent soul, or the explosion of a beast cultivator's beast core, they weren't things that could be completed in a single breath. However, if the beast core exploded, it would be dangerous. In the end, the Tempest Bird's beast core exploded. Fortunately, the two of them reacted quickly. Before the beast core completely exploded, the Tempest Bird was killed by Qin Shi with a single sword strike. The remaining power was also blocked by the white silk handkerchief. Only a few chairs were damaged in the entire main hall. Mo Qiange picked up the white silk handkerchief with 18 holes inside. This defensive magic weapon given to her by her great ancestor was broken in the end. It was so broken that she couldn't repair it even if she wanted to. Qin Shi, on the other hand, looked at the tempest bird that had exploded into a pile of rotten flesh with pity. The body of an 8th-rank demonic beast was full of treasures. If he could concoct an 8th-rank beast core into medicinal pills and take it, his cultivation level would definitely soar. Ingjingi hurried over. As soon as she entered the main hall, she was startled. "Seniors, this is... clean it up." "Jing," she said. "Yes." Ingjingi summoned 2 part-time disciples. "Ha." A chuckle came from the door. Feng Ning, who had changed her clothes, leaned against the door and looked at them mockingly. "The 2 of you are really at ease." Although she wasn't hit by the explosion, she was covered in powder. No matter how you looked at it, she was in a sorry state. Mo Qianga waved her sleeves and cast a simple spell, removing all the powder from her body. She looked at Feng Ning with a sincere smile. "Miss Feng, why didn't you stay in the small courtyard to recuperate? Your injuries just now weren't light, right?" Feng Ning's expression changed as if she was poked in her sore spot. Her injuries were indeed not light. Her whole arm was invaded by the fire aura, and it would take a long time to completely remove the fire aura. She said with a calm expression, "I still have to thank you. If it weren't for you, how could I have been injured?" Mo Qianga smiled. "Miss Feng is really noble. For us, you were willing to use yourself as bait. I'm really touched." Feng Ning glared at her while panting with rage. "You still have the face to say that? I didn't do it willingly." Her gaze swept over Qin Shi, making her even angrier. "Man. Sure enough, you're a thing that forgets your friends for love." Her words were a bit harsh. Qin Shi looked up with a sharp gaze. "Miss Feng, if it weren't for that, it wouldn't have been easy for us to repel those beast cultivators." Seeing his expression, Feng Ning knew she said something wrong, but she didn't want to admit defeat. She argued, "Your cultivation level is the highest. Isn't it safer for you to contain those beast cultivators?" "Qin," she said faintly, "first of all, we have a tacit understanding of each other. Second, Miss Feng lacks the means to kill them in one blow. I'm very sorry for letting you get injured." Feng Ning turned around and said, "Humph, I'm done talking to you. Don't talk to me anymore." Mo Qianga took out a jade bottle from her Qingquan bag. Upon hearing what she said, she looked embarrassed. "I was about to say that to express my apology, here are 3 9 transformations yang restoration pills, but Miss said to ignore you from now on. I really don't know what to do." Feng Ning suddenly turned around and stared at Mo Qianga, gnashing her teeth. "Mo Qing. Wei." Mo Qianga immediately said, "Miss Feng, what can I do for you?" "Go to hell." Feng Ning flew into a rage. "Are you deliberately playing with me? When did I offend you? You. Chapter 578. In the end, Feng Ning took the 9 Revolutions Yang Restoration pills back to her small courtyard. 9 Revolutions Yang Restoration pills weren't easy to concoct. Not to mention the rarity of the materials, the concoction technique alone had to be done from the 1st revolution to the 9th revolution without the slightest mistake. Feng Ning wasn't a fool. She wouldn't give up 9 Revolutions Yang Restoration pills worth tens of thousands of spirit stones, let alone 3 of them. After Feng Ning left, Mo Qianga sat down, covering her face and laughing. "Qin," she said, "you've offended Feng Ning badly." "So what?" Mo Qianga didn't care at all. Even if she reported it to Master, we're still in the right. How could cultivators not get hurt? Besides, she deliberately compensated him with 3 9 Revolutions Yang Restoration pills. Wasn't that enough sincerity? Who told Feng Ning to talk about marriage and deliberately make her unhappy? Thinking of this, Mo Qianga was unhappy again. He actually almost got engaged to someone else before she appeared. Qin Shi glanced at her. Seeing her unhappy expression, he pondered for a while and decided to explain. "In fact, Senior Ding often jokes and Master also likes to joke, so you almost got engaged?" Mo Qianga squinted at him. "It wasn't almost, it was just a joke. I never took it seriously." "Fine." Mo Qianga thought for a while then asked, "What other romantic affairs do you have? Tell me all at once." Qin Shi thought seriously for a while then said sincerely, "No. Even if I did, it had nothing to do with me." In the 100 years before he met her, his life was boring. Apart from cultivation and experience, there was nothing else. Romantic affairs were other people's business and had nothing to do with him. "Really?" Mo Qianga was doubtful. "Really?" Qin Shi was very sure, trying to make his expression look very sincere. In fact, Feng Ning didn't need to tell him about this matter. There was nothing between them, the elders just joked a few times. If they didn't happen to travel together this time, no one would mention this matter. However, he felt very happy. Her reaction showed that she cared about him. The two part-time disciples took the Wind Thunderbird's corpse, cleaned it and moved a clean chair. The two of them casually said a few words, then went back to their own cultivation. Mo Qianga took out the thunder bead Jing Xingji gave her a few days ago, seeped her divine sense into it, and started to explore its structure. This lightning bead could paralyze a person's breathing. If she could figure out what was going on, her great heavenly lightning art would become even more powerful. While he was studying, Feifei's voice sounded in his ears, "Let me out, let me out." Mo Qianga moved her spiritual aura, then pointed at the spiritual beast bracelet and released Feifei. "What's wrong?" After exiting the spirit beast bangle, Feifei stretched her back and said, "I'm so bored inside. I came out for a stroll." Since they were here to kill demonic beasts, Xiaohua and Xiaofan would easily cause misunderstandings if they came out, so Mo Qianga left them inside the virtual sky world. Only Feifei was left. After it transformed into its human form, it couldn't stay in the virtual sky world for long. It always wanted to find a crowded place to stay, so it stayed in the spiritual beast bracelet so it could come out at any time. Besides, this was his hometown. How could he hide in the spirit beast bag? Then go ahead and stroll around. Remember to bring the token with you. Feifei lazily pointed at the Xianqing school Taoist robe it was wearing. Wearing this, who would ask? That's hard to say. With your current appearance, people will know you're not among the people I brought. Got it. Feifei curled its lips, tidied its robe, took out a water mirror and combed its long hair. Feeling that it was incomparably handsome and flawless, it hummed a tune and left the sect head's main hall. Mo Qianga couldn't help but shake her head as she watched its back. How could she raise such a spiritual beast? It was fine when it hadn't transformed, it only needed to comb its golden fur all day long, and when it turned into a human and had to look at itself in the mirror, but she wasn't so particular about it. When Feifei walked out of the sect head's main hall and passed by the square, Bai Yanfei suddenly called out, "Senior Martial Brother." Seeing that Feifei ignored him, he raised his voice and said, "Senior Martial Brother, please wait." Feifei stopped. Seeing that there was no one around, it looked at Bai Yanfei and pointed at its nose. "Did you call me?" Bai Yanfei nodded and walked towards Feifei. He cupped his hands and asked, "Senior Martial Brother, why haven't I seen you before?" In the whole of Xianqing School, there were only about 40 core formation cultivators. Usually they saw each other all the time. Even if they didn't talk to each other, they knew each other. There was no reason for a core formation cultivator they hadn't seen to suddenly appear, especially one in the late stage of the core formation realm. Feifei was currently in the 7th rank, the late stage of the core formation realm for human cultivators. Upon hearing what Bai Yanfei said, Feifei waved its hand lazily and said, "It's normal if you haven't seen me before. It'd be strange if you did." Bai Yanfei felt even more baffled. "May I ask which martial uncle you're under?" Feifei pointed at the sect head's main hall. "There." Bai Yanfei was stunned. Martial Uncle Shoujing and Martial Uncle Qingwei? They only have one disciple. Feifei interrupted him. "Who said I'm a disciple? I'm Mo Qingwei's spiritual beast." Spiritual beast. Bai Yanfei's eyes bulged so much that they almost fell out. He looked Feifei up and down. The youngster in front of him was extremely handsome. His black hair was mixed with a few strands of gold, and his pupils seemed to be embedded with golden threads. He looked devilishly handsome. Bai Yanfei was very confident in his appearance, but in front of Feifei he could only admit defeat. If a spiritual beast was more handsome than a person, would people like them still want to live? Here. Feifei took out an identity tablet from its robe and waved it in front of him. "I didn't lie to you, did I?" This identity tablet was specially made by the steward's hall. When Feifei ran to the steward's hall to ask for clothes and identity tablets, the steward there was dumbfounded. Although there were many nascent soul lord Taoists in Xianqing School, none of them had a transformed spiritual beast that ran to the steward's hall to ask for an identity tablet. He couldn't make the decision on this matter, so he reported it to Master Taoist Shi, who sent a voice transmission to Mo Qianga. After confirming this matter was true, Master Taoist Shi specially made an identity tablet for Feifei and registered it in the disciple register. Bai Yanfei stared at this identity tablet specially made by Xianqing School. After confirming that the aura sealed inside was the same as Feifei's, he finally believed it. He hesitated for a moment but still said, "Senior Martial Brother, I'm busy now. Are you willing to help me?" Feifei was impatient to stay in this closed place. It didn't care what it was doing, so it asked, "What kind of help?" Bai Yanfei pointed at the foundation building cultivators. "These juniors aren't familiar with each other. I can't split myself up, so I'll have to trouble you to teach them a thing or two for me." Feifei looked at them. There were only 10 people in a team forming a 10-square formation. Although it wasn't good at fights of magical powers, it was already in the 7th rank after all, so it could learn by watching. All right. It had nothing to do anyway. Bai Yanfei smiled and bowed. "Sorry to trouble you, senior martial brother." Feifei turned to look at them, then casually pointed at them. You and you, the 3 of you follow me." The 30 disciples looked at Feifei, then looked at Bai Yanfei. The 3 people in the lead uttered yes, and led their teams to follow them. Feifei walked towards the mountain gate with his hands behind his back. "Senior martial brother," Bai Yanfei called from behind, "when it gets dark you can order them to go back." Feifei waved his hand without looking back, indicating he understood. He then led the 30 disciples and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Bai Yanfei stared at the place where they disappeared, remaining silent for a long time. After a long time, a bitter smile appeared on his face. Spiritual beast? It was actually a spiritual beast. The cultivation level of that senior martial sister Mo's spiritual beast was also higher than his. Who else could he compare to? He even politely called a spiritual beast senior martial brother. Back then he only treated a spiritual beast as an animal. Why would he call it senior martial brother so politely? While Bai Yanfei was wallowing in self-pity, Feifei led the 3 teams of foundation building cultivators to go out. Tang Shen, who was responsible for guarding the mountain gate, didn't dare to be careless. After he received a disciple's report, he immediately rushed over. Ever since the demonic beasts attacked, Bishuan Court's great mountain protecting formation was completely activated and the mountain gate was sealed. If that wasn't the case, how could the cultivators in Bishuan Court resist the beast cultivators' attacks? Now, disciples were strictly prohibited from entering and exiting Bishuan Court. One reason was for the disciples' safety, and the other was because they were worried someone would leak the situation inside Bishuan Court to the beast cultivators. Senior martial brother. Upon seeing Feifei, Tang Xin sized him up cautiously, then saluted him. "May I know how I should address you, senior martial brother?" Feifei didn't feel like explaining. He still took out the identity tablet and waved it in front of Tang Xin. His origin was clearly written on the identity tablet. There were more than 10 words. Feifei, Lord Daoist Qingwei's spiritual beast. Tang Xin was stunned when he saw the 2 words Feifei. He suddenly remembered that martial uncle Qingyao once gave Elder Yi a Feifei. He was extremely shocked. He remembered that Feifei was only in the 1st rank back then, but now its cultivation level was even higher than his, and it even took a human form. Only now did he realize how powerful Elder Ye's methods were. The Eastern Sea's Feifei were only in the 2nd or 3rd rank at most. He'd never heard of a 7th rank Feifei. Not only did she raise a Feifei to the 7th rank, but her advancement speed was also astonishingly fast. Speaking of which, could 7th rank spiritual beasts take a human form? He was puzzled. Oh, senior martial brother. After thinking for a long time, Tang Xin still decided to call him senior martial brother like a human cultivator. "May I ask why we have to leave the monastery?" Feifei pointed at a group of cultivators behind him and said, "To take them out for training." "This isn't necessary?" Tang Xin said, "Our sect is so big. If we want to train we can go anywhere. Besides, it's very dangerous outside. What if you encounter demonic beasts outside attacking the mountain?" Feifei said, "I'll naturally bring them back in time." Tang Xin hesitated for a moment, then said, "Senior martial brother, please wait for a moment. I'll ask for instructions first." Feifei muttered, "So troublesome. Isn't it just going out?" Tang Xin smiled politely and said, "This is an emergency. Please forgive me, senior martial brother." He then took out a sound-transmitting talisman, said a few words, then waved his hand and flew towards the sect head's main hall. Before long, the sound-transmitting talisman flew back. Tang Xin took it and heard a sentence, "Let it be." He then took out an identity tablet and shone it lightly, opening a small hole that could only accommodate 2 people. "Senior martial brother, please." Feifei led the 30 foundation building disciples out of Bishuan Court in a swagger. Once everyone left, Tang Xin waved the identity tablet and the formation closed again. He didn't go back immediately. Instead, he stood there in a daze, watching Feifei slowly fly away. A spiritual beast. This was just a spiritual beast. In comparison, he was really incompetent. Fei didn't know its appearance had made two cultivators with superior aptitudes feel ashamed of their inferiority. It just led the group of foundation-building disciples towards the seaside in excitement. Chapter 579. The Smell of the Sea. Fei stood above the sea and took a deep breath. Although it was a walking beast, it had lived on an island in the East China Sea since it was a child, so the sea was its home. "Martial uncle." Someone shouted from below, "What are we going to do?" Fei was very unhappy that its memory was interrupted. It rushed down and kicked all 30 foundation-building cultivators into the sea. "Martial uncle." These cultivators scratched their heads after being kicked into the sea. They didn't know what this martial uncle wanted to do. They weren't good at swimming, so they could only rely on light body technique to float in the sea. Fei glared at them. "Who told you to use spells? Soak in the sea for me?" Having no other choice, these people cancelled the light body technique and fell into the sea with a thud. Fei nodded with satisfaction. "If you want to fight with sea beasts, you have to get used to the sea. If you can smoothly practice the 10-direction formation in the sea without using spells, you'll pass. You and you." Fei pointed at the leaders of the 3 squads. "Come here." The 3 of them flew over while dragging their wet clothes. "Martial uncle. I'll go patrol. You 3 keep watch. They're lazy." The 3 of them said in fear and trepidation, "Rest assured, martial uncle. We won't be lazy." "That's good." Fei turned to look at them, then waved its hand. A golden aura flew out of its sleeve, circled around and formed a light screen not far away. It said, "If a demonic beast comes, it'll warn you. You should quickly return to Bishuan Court." Yes. The foundation-building cultivators felt reassured. What they worried about the most was running into demonic beasts after leaving Bishuan Court's great mountain-protecting formation. Fei no longer said anything. With a flash of golden light, it transformed into its true form, Fei. It ran in the air towards the depths of the sea, leaving behind a tiger paw print. The 30 foundation-building cultivators were dumbfounded. In the end, one of the 3 team leaders said, "Martial uncle's escaping technique is very strange." The other 2 nodded simultaneously. Yes, it was definitely an escaping technique. Some escaping techniques indeed allowed one to transform into an animal and run. While the 30 of them were diligently practicing the 10-direction formation in the sea, Fei transformed into its true form and ran in midair, quickly leaving the coast. Fei's escape technique originated from the white tiger's body. The white tiger's body was still in its storage space, and it had absorbed a portion of the white tiger's bloodline and possessed some of the white tiger's magical abilities. For example, every time its 4 feet landed, a white tiger paw print would be formed. As he ran, an island appeared in front of him. There was a demon city on the island, and a few rays of light flew out from the demon city towards him. Fei's footsteps came to a halt, and he stopped in midair, his eyes wide as he stared at the approaching escape light. The light stopped in front of it and revealed their true appearances. They were a flying bird, a dolphin, and a giant fish, all of which were at the 6th or 7th level. Faced with it, the dolphin cried out first. There was a pattern to its cries. In fact, it was speaking the language of demonic beasts. "Brother Yao," the dolphin called out. Fei looked at them vigilantly and asked in the same beast language, "What do you want?" Dolphin said, "May I know Brother Yao's background?" Fei said, "What does this have to do with you?" The 3 demonic beasts were startled. The giant fish said, "Could it be that you're not a demonic beast from here?" Fei snorted and asked instead of answering, "Where are you demonic beasts from? Why don't I remember there being such high-level demonic beasts here?" The dolphin said, "We were originally demonic beasts from the South Sea. Later the world changed and the South Sea was connected to the celestial pole, so we came here." Fei became serious. "So, this place isn't the East Sea anymore?" "Not really," the dolphin said. "The islands connected to the mainland also moved along with the mainland, so this place can also be said to be the East Sea. However, if we go further, we'll be in the South Sea." Fei felt relieved and its tone became kinder. "So you're demonic beasts from the South Sea. No wonder I don't remember there being such high-level demonic beasts here." The dolphin chuckled and put its 2 fins together as if it was saluting. "Brother Yao, you're a demonic beast from the East Sea?" Fei nodded. "Yes, I grew up on an island in the East Sea. Later, I left the East Sea in order to advance. Now that I'm about to transform, I've returned to the East Sea to prepare for it." "I see." The dolphin looked it up and down and asked in confusion, "May I know what kind of beast Brother Yao is? Why have we never seen a demonic beast like Brother Yao?" Feifei held its head high and said, "I'm a descendant of the ancient divine beast Feifei." Feifei? The other two demonic beasts looked at the dolphin. The dolphin racked its brains and suddenly remembered something. "Feifei, you're the Feifei that can coexist peacefully with all ferocious beasts?" Flying Bird and Giant Fish asked one after another, "Is there really a Feifei?" They hadn't reached the 8th rank yet, so Flying Bird and Giant Fish only had low-level intelligence. Only the dolphin was one of the special species of demonic beast. Its spiritual intelligence had long been awakened, so it was equivalent to an 8th-rank demonic beast that had already transformed. It wasn't much different from humans. The dolphin thought of a possibility and asked, "Because you're a Feifei, we're not hostile towards you." In the past, if they encountered an unknown demonic beast that wasn't willing to tell them about its origin, they would have already attacked it. Feifei nodded. "That's right. Even if you guys want to kill me, I can make you guys dispel your hostility." The dolphin already believed it. From the moment it saw Feifei, it had never thought of using force to make it submit. This was probably one of the Feifei's special abilities. Besides, from the conversation just now, Feifei's intelligence had clearly surpassed that of ordinary demonic beasts. "So it's Brother Feifei. It's an honor to meet you." The dolphin swung its tail and lowered its head. Feifei returned the greeting, but its tone was still arrogant. "What are you guys doing here?" Since they were both demonic beasts, the dolphin said straightforwardly, "There are many cultivators at the seaside. We're here to hunt." Hunters. Humans and demonic beasts had a mutual hunting relationship. Humans would hunt demonic beasts, and demonic beasts would naturally hunt humans too. A cultivator's body and golden core were also very nourishing to them. "Yes. I wonder if Brother Feifei is interested in joining us? We have an 8th-rank demonic ancestor in our demon city." Feifei shook its head uninterestedly. "Our Feifei's cultivation method is different from yours. I won't be joining you as a hunter." The dolphin was a little disappointed. Feifei was one of the ancient divine beasts. They demonic beasts worship bloodlines the most. Moreover, it was going to transform very soon. "I'm going to look for my clansmen. I hope we won't offend each other." "Of course. Brother Feifei, have a safe journey." The dolphin made a gesture of sending it off. Feifei nodded arrogantly. Still stepping on the tiger paw prints, it ran deep into the sea. The dolphin, Flying Bird, and Giant Fish respectfully watched as it left. After running for another few thousand kilometers, Feifei looked at a small island in the sea excitedly. Fortunately, this island came with the celestial pole. Otherwise, it wouldn't even be able to find its home. After calming its emotions, it landed on the small island. On the beach, 3 to 5 Feifei were playing. When they saw a golden light falling from the sky, they were stunned. Feifei saw these little Feifei and ran toward them. "Where's the clan leader?" The little Feifei blinked its eyes and looked at it without answering. Feifei asked patiently, "Where's the clan leader? Are you a god?" One of the little Feifei gathered its courage and asked. "God." Feifei blinked. The little Feifei said, "Your fur is golden." Feifei shook the golden fur on its body and raised its head proudly. "Of course I'm the most outstanding Feifei." "So you're not a god," the little Feifei said in disappointment. Feifei glared at it. "There's no god. Take me to the clan leader." "I'll take you there," another little Feifei called out. The little Feifei turned around and ran toward the other side of the small island. Feifei followed. While running, the little Feifei asked, "If you're not a god, why is your fur golden?" "Because I ate a spirit fruit," Feifei answered indifferently. "Can I eat it? I also want my fur to turn golden. It's so beautiful." "You'll have to ask my master." "Master?" The little Feifei suddenly stopped and turned to look at Feifei. Its fur stood on end. "What's wrong?" Feifei asked. The little Feifei's eyes flickered with hostility. "You're a human spirit beast, not one of us." Feifei looked at it and laughed. "You're so small. Do you know what a spirit beast is?" "I know." The little Feifei shouted. "Those human cultivators will come and capture us, and we'll be separated from our family forever." At this point it started to cry. "I don't want to leave my mother." Feifei was even more amused. "I'm not going to capture you. Why are you crying?" The little Feifei stopped crying and stared at it with wide eyes. "You're not going to capture me? Why would I want to capture you?" The little Feifei tilted its head and thought for a moment. A thought flashed through its mind and it said, I know. You want to see the clan leader and then capture us all. Feifei was stunned. It laughed and scolded, nonsense. I'm also a Feifei. But you're already a spirit beast. You're not a Feifei anymore. Little Yuan. A shout came from behind the little Feifei. The little Feifei turned its head and several adult Feifei ran toward them. The little Feifei jumped up. Clan leader. One of the Feifei grabbed the little Feifei and hid behind it. The group of Feifei came before Feifei and stared at it cautiously. You're the clan leader? Feifei asked the leading Feifei. That Feifei raised its front paw. Yes, I'm the clan leader. You're, Feifei said, my father's name is White Fang. White Fang. The clan leader thought for a moment and jumped up. You're the missing son of White Fang? Feifei nodded its head. Yes. Is my father still alive? The clan leader sighed and shook its head. Your father died not long after you disappeared. Hearing this, the light in Feifei's eyes dimmed. The clan leader asked, where did you go? Why did you become like this? You've broken through to the 4th level? Feifei cheered up and said, yes, I'm already at the 7th level. 7th level? The group of Feifei was shocked and whispered to each other. The adult Feifei were usually at the 2nd or 3rd level, and the highest was only at the 4th level. There had never been a 7th level Feifei. Feifei continued to answer the clan leader's question. Back then I was accidentally captured by humans. That you're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.